Chapter 74. Not long after Jinwan returned, she was still organizing the documents when she heard the door open. She stood up to see Mo Jingshan's silhouette appear by the door. It was already past 9. He had a social engagement tonight and did not drink much. Although the smell of alcohol on him was not strong, Jinwan could still smell it the moment she approached. "Your social engagement ended so early?" Jinwan approached to ask, casually taking the jacket he had just taken off. Mo Jingshan was about to toss the jacket to the side when he saw Jinwan's natural movements. His gaze paused on her face for a moment before he smiled and handed the jacket to her. "Mrs. Mo is home alone. I can't let you wait for too long." Every time this man's gaze landed on her, it was as though it was dyed with endless darkness. It was like the ocean in the night sky, causing one to be unable to see its bottom. However, it caused Jinwan's heart to beat faster. Especially at night when there was no one else in the house, this feeling was even more obvious. Last night, Jinwan used the excuse of reading the company's documents for an entire day to fall asleep early. No matter what, she could not let Mo Jingshan, who went to bed on time, have his way. Tonight, could she use the excuse of going to Grandfather Mo's birthday celebration tomorrow to bluff her way through for one more night? "Do you want to take a shower first?" Although the faint smell of alcohol on his body was not unpleasant, Jinwan felt that it was better for him to take a shower first. Otherwise, if he continued to stare at her like this, she would most likely be thrown onto the bed in less than 10 minutes. He was clearly a man with a gentle aura. Even the smile on his lips was filled with gentlemanly self-restraint. But who knew better than her, in bed, this man? Not only did he not control himself, he would even bite. The hickeys on her body had just faded slightly. She did not want to let him have his way again. "All right." He did not reject. While he entered the bathroom to take a shower, Jinwan directly went to boil some water. Although he was not drunk, it was common for different types of alcohol to be mixed at social engagements. Even if he was not drunk, it would still hurt his stomach. She wanted to make a cup of tea to warm his stomach and sober up. Furthermore, this rare feeling of simply enjoying a world with just the two of them, to her, she really wanted to cherish it more. In the bathroom, the sound of water did not stop. Jinwan recalled that she had forgotten to bring his clothes to change earlier and turned to return to the bedroom. A few minutes later, she placed the clothes in front of the bathroom door. She knocked once. "I'll leave the clothes outside." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to leave. However, before she could turn around, he suddenly opened the bathroom door. Jinwan's eyelids twitched. Perhaps this was not the first time she had seen such a high-definition and censored scene, but she still blushed. He was on the bed, but he suddenly stood in front of her so openly. She couldn't accept it, so she turned around and wanted to run away. Unexpectedly, Mo Jingshan suddenly reached out and pulled her back. "Ah, you're covered in water. You haven't wiped it off yet. What are you going to do? Come, let's wash together." The next day, before going to the Mo family, Jinwan first returned to the Ji home. After a night of indulgence, there was not a single part of Jinwan's body that did not feel sore. Even when she walked, her legs felt weak. "Why didn't you go to the Mo family with Jingshan?" Ji Hongwen asked when he saw Jinwan. Jinwan answered with a smile. "Some relatives who came back from abroad arrived in the wee hours of the morning. There wasn't a convenient car, so Jingshan went to the airport to pick them up. I didn't intend for him to detour half of Haicheng to come home to pick me up, so I came to go to the Mo home with you." The group boarded the car and prepared to set off. Before they set off, Jinwan suddenly said, "Wait for me in the car. My stomach isn't feeling well. I'll be right back." Ji Menggran and Shen Haru had already boarded the car. Their eyes were fixed on her figure. For some reason, they felt that Jinwan's motive for coming back so early in the morning was not so pure. However, they had already boarded the car, and there was no way for them to get off to check on the situation. Shen Haru sat in the car and could not help but say, "Monwan, wouldn't it be better to call the Mo family's chauffeur to pick her up? Taking such a long detour back to the Ji home, I really don't know what she's thinking." Ji Hongwen coldly glanced at her. "Even if Monwan is the Mo family's granddaughter-in-law, she's still my, Ji Hongwen's, daughter. Jingshan isn't by her side, So there's nothing wrong with her going with us? Several minutes later, Ji-Wan came out. She opened the door and entered the car. Her expression did not seem strange at all. Ji Mengran did not say a word as she sat in the back seat. However, she kept glancing at Ji-Wan's bag from time to time. Shen Haru glanced at her and did not notice anything strange. She then shifted her gaze away. The Mo family's old mansion was located under a mountain range with excellent feng shui in Haicheng. It occupied a large area and was located in the suburbs of Qingshan, which had the best air quality. Their car had just arrived when a slightly older figure walked out. It was the Mo family's butler, Uncle. He came out with a smile. Elder Mo is currently receiving guests inside and could not come out to welcome you. He specially sent me to invite you in. As he spoke, Uncle O glanced at Shin Haru, who was following behind Ji Hongwen. Thinking of the family behind Shin Haru, he could not help but smile. What a coincidence! The Qin family is also here today. It's rare to see people from the four main families of Haicheng appear at the same place. The four main families of Haicheng, the Mo family, the Qin family, the Ji family, and the Sheng family. Before Shin Haru married Ji Hongwen, she had relied on the Sheng family to survive because of her ex-husband, although she no longer had any connection with the Sheng family. That's right. Ji Mengran suddenly interrupted in a low voice. But Auntie Shen is the only one who came today. I haven't seen Brother Sheng for a long time. Hearing the words, Brother Sheng, Ji Hongwen's eyes turned cold, and Shin Haru suddenly looked a little uncomfortable. In silence, they all took a seemingly unintentional look at Ji-Wan. Ji-Wan raised her hand, her expression unchanged, and casually tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Uncle O, where is Grandfather Mo receiving guests? Let's go straight there. Uncle O led them inside. Wherever she passed by, the guests' attitudes toward Ji-Wan were not very warm. In her previous life, Ji-Wan had never been nice to these elders. If she suddenly took the initiative to greet them now, it would be too strange, and the change in her character would be too abrupt, so she simply followed Uncle O quietly all the way. Uncle O led them into the banquet hall inside. At first glance, they saw Elder Mo, who was in high spirits although he was leaning on a cane. Hey! Are you all here? Seeing them, Elder Mo turned and walked over. Grandfather, I wish you happiness as boundless as the East Sea and longevity as long as the South Mountain. Ji-Wan rarely looked gentle and obedient. Jingshan has just picked up the guests from afar at the airport. I guess they will be here soon. When everyone is here, we will give you a good birthday. No hurry, no hurry. It's good that you are here. I'm happy to see you all together. Elder Mo was in a good mood because it was the first time that Ji-Wan had called him grandfather so intimately. He thought of the phone call he made to the United States 2 nights ago and scolded his son for more than half an hour. Thinking about it, he felt it was worth it. Grandfather Mo, happy birthday. Suddenly, a soft voice came, with a hint of gentleness and respect. Chapter 75. Although she did not expect it, it was not too sudden for her to come. Although Shu Yan was only Mo Jingshan's secretary, she was friends with the Mo family. Right now, she was in the country, and it was Elder Mo's 80th birthday. It was normal for her to come. Ji-Wan immediately saw the exquisite gift box Shu Yan was holding. And Shu Yan was extremely beautiful. Her brows were soft, her facial features exquisite, and her aura elegant. Today, she had dressed up meticulously. She was no longer wearing the simple attire she wore in the office. Instead, she was wearing a low-key, gentle dress that showed off her status. Her every frown and every smile was like the daughter of a wealthy family the elders spoke of. Elder Mo turned back. Io, Shu Yan is here so early? You've just returned not long ago. You should still be jet-lagged. It's a rare day off, so you should rest more. Why did you wake up so early? And Shu Yan acted as though she did not see Ji-Wan, who was being tugged by Elder Mo's side. She only smiled and said, It's fine. So Mo usually takes good care of me. It won't be too tiring working by his side. As she spoke, it was as though her earlier words were unintentional. She smiled and handed over the gift box in her hands. This child, it's already not easy for her to come back to visit. Why did she bring a gift? Elder Mo smiled, excitedly reaching out to receive it. Shu Yen has already grown so big? AI were really old. Wasn't this child developing in America? Why did she suddenly return? Could it be that she specially came to celebrate Elder Mo's birthday? She's really thoughtful. When the elders of the Mo family entered the door and saw Shu Yen, they directly approached her with smiles on their faces. At the same time, someone agreed, that's right. Back then, we all thought that Shu Yen would become the Mo family's granddaughter-in-law. Who would have thought? Before that person could finish speaking, he was slapped on the hand by his husband. He immediately shut his mouth and looked awkwardly toward Jinwan. In an instant, everyone's gaze shifted toward Jinwan. Jinwan appeared as though she did not hear anything. She received the unopened gift box from the elder's hands and placed it on the shelf by the side. She turned back to say, "Everyone, sit down and chat. I'll go cut some fruits for you." The surrounding people who were waiting to watch a good show were startled. They did not expect Jinwan to take on the attitude of half a mistress of the Mo family without batting an eyelid. Even the opportunity for others to continue making sarcastic remarks had been blocked, and Shu Yen saw that her unopened gift had already been placed on the display shelf at the side, buried under the other gifts. She was still smiling, and her eyes seemed to inadvertently look in the direction Jinwan had left. This Jinwan seemed to be different from the one she had heard before returning to the country. Jinwan brought the freshly cut fruit out. Her words and actions were appropriate. The elders who were waiting to catch her could only glance at her. Due to the presence of the elder, most of them reluctantly gave her some face, but there were still some whose eyes were filled with obvious disdain. "Girl, go outside and take a look. Has Jingshan returned?" Elder Mo saw that almost all the guests had arrived and directly spoke to Jinwan. "All right." Jinwan turned to leave. Right now, not only was Jinwan's actions impeccable, even the elder had clearly revealed her identity in front of everyone. Any unfriendly gazes were clearly seen by the elder. Jinwan walked to the courtyard where Elder Mo and the guests could not see her. She suddenly saw her aunt, Mo Pylon, standing in front of her. She was currently chatting and laughing with several middle-aged women around her age. She turned back to see Jinwan and coldly glared at her. Jinwan pretended not to see and walked out. Mo Pylon walked over and blocked her path. "Yo, didn't you just arrive? Where are you going? Could it be that you were chased out? Without the elder's protection, I'm afraid you'll be crushed to death by the eyes of your relatives and friends, right? In this Mo family, there really aren't many who like you." Jinwan's expression did not change. "Look at my eyes. I actually just saw Aunt. Why didn't you go in to sit? Instead, you're standing outside eating melon seeds?" Mo Pylon's expression faltered. Before she could speak, she heard Jinwan leisurely say with a smile, "I almost forgot. The Mo family has a rule. I'm afraid there isn't even a place for Aunt to sit in the guest hall. Inside are all the Mo family's direct relatives or important figures. As for you, you can only grab a handful of melon seeds and stand outside in the cold wind." Mo Pylon harshly glared at her. "If it wasn't for Jingshan protecting you, do you think you can enter?" Jinwan is the Mo family's official granddaughter-in-law. Even if others can't enter, she has to. All of a sudden, Mo Jingshan's voice came from behind Mo Pylon. Mo Pylon faltered. She turned to meet Mo Jingshan's clear and cold gaze. Mo Jingshan walked past her. Jinwan saw him approaching. He indeed possessed all the qualities that made him the center of attention. Since he did not need to go to the company today, Mo Jingshan was dressed casually. He wore a light-colored turtleneck sweater, straight trousers, and a beige windbreaker. He rarely wore warm colors. Today, he was not dressed high and mighty, but it made him appear more realistic in front of Jinwan. His fashionable and low-profile clothes made his skin look slightly pale. Under the dazzling sunlight in the front yard of the Mo family's old mansion, it seemed to be hidden. Only a pair of deep, ink-like eyes and thin lips could be seen. They were so bright and beautiful that one could not shift their eyes away. Mo Jingshan had gone to the airport very early today. He had been picking up guests until now, but he didn't look tired at all. When he came up to Jinwan, his brows relaxed, his lips curved, and he adjusted the collar of her coat. "Why aren't you inside? Why did you come out?" "Grandfather looked at the time and felt that you should be back soon. He asked me to come out and pick you up. Go in. Don't stand outside in the cold wind." Mo Jingshin put his arm around Jinwan's waist and walked back. He did not even give that so-called aunt a second glance. They entered the guest hall. Originally, it was bustling with various guests chatting in groups of 3 to 5. The elder was also speaking with several elders. The moment Mo Jingshin appeared, the hall suddenly became quieter. The moment they saw Jinwan, who was openly held by Mo Jingshin, walk through the door, the guests who had secretly ridiculed her when he was not around all fell silent. None of them dared to make a sound. As Mo Jingshin walked through the door, their expressions softened. The mockery turned into flattery, the mockery turned into smiles, and their cold gazes turned into warm gazes. Jinwan thought that the Mo family's relatives and friends were all elites who had been honed in the upper class. Even if these people had many tricks up their sleeves, right now, they were all blocked by Mo Jingshin's sharp eyes. Chapter 76. Today, those who had the right to attend the Mo family home were all from the upper class of Haicheng and even the country. From the political and business circles to the media and entertainment circles, they had all sent representatives to attend. Although it was called a birthday banquet, it was more like a social test. Everyone's expression was a show of the ways of the world. Mo Pailin was unwilling to give up. She followed them in from outside the door. The moment she stepped in, she spoke. "Miss Ji is really capable. You can coax our Jingshin into treating you like a precious jewel. You're so capable, yet you haven't returned to the Mo family in half a year after getting married. Why don't you continue to grow your skills and continue to be Mrs. Mo in the Yu Garden? Why did you come to the Mo family home? After all, you've never placed us old things in your eyes." Jinwan was about to speak up when Mo Jingshin pressed down on her in his arms. "Jinwan's health isn't good. I was the one who arranged for her to rest more in the Yu Garden and go out less. It has nothing to do with Jinwan." Mo Jingshin spoke up to protect her. His attitude was cold and indifferent, not giving her any face at all. Mo Pailin rolled her eyes. The last time she brought her daughter to the Yu Garden, she did not receive any benefits. She could not take this lying down. Today, it was not only Mo Jingshin and the elder who were present. No matter what, Mo Pailin had to teach Jinwan a lesson. Elder quickly looked. This is the first time Jingshin has brought his wife back after getting married, and he already has such an attitude. He completely doesn't place us elders in his eyes. If this continues, I'm afraid even you won't be able to compete with Jinwan's status. What Jinwan says is 1, and what she says is 2. If Jinwan is unhappy and tells Jingshin not to return to the Mo family, I'm afraid he'll really cut off all ties with the Mo family. Pailin, you're already so old. Don't you know how to keep a lid on your words? Elder Mo furrowed his brows, his gaze impatient as he said, I asked them to set up their wedding house in the Yu Garden and not stay in the Mo family home. I wanted them to live peacefully. This half a year, there hasn't been any major events at home. Jingshin is usually busy at the company. Why would they return to the Mo family? Stop stirring up trouble here. Mo Pailin's expression froze, and she had no choice but to change her expression. Although she had a smile on her face, she still continued to nitpick. How am I instigating? Elder, this Jinwan hasn't returned home even once since she got married. I'm just trying to talk to her from the perspective of an elder. Besides, our Jingshin is so good in all aspects. Why did he marry Jinwan? Aside from having an empty face, this Ji family's eldest daughter is not worthy of our Jingshin. With Jingshin around, after a period of recuperation, you'll definitely be able to give birth to a healthy baby. Don't worry, in the future, grandfather will look after you. Don't care about any rumors. Take good care of yourself. If you're already pregnant, that would be even better. But you still have to take care of your own body. Grandfather's body is still strong. I can wait. As he spoke, the elder turned back to glare at Mo Pailin. Jinwan has been preparing for pregnancy and has been recuperating at home. In the end, look at what you've said. You're already so old, but you only know how to stir up trouble all day long. Mo Pailin was somewhat embarrassed. She pulled a long face, but she did not dare to casually mock and speculate about the matter of the Mo family's great-grandson. After all, this was the elder's bottom line. If she crossed the bottom line, it was likely that she would not be able to enter the Mo family's door in the future. On the other side, Jin-won quietly glanced at the man beside her from time to time. Preparing for pregnancy? Mo Jingshin was indeed very black-bellied. With just these 2 words, he was enough to block out all the words against her. After all, her position as Mrs. Mo was stable. Now that the matter of preparing for pregnancy was involved, no one dared to offend her, for fear that if they made her unhappy and caused any problems to the Mo family's great-grandson, they would be directly beaten into the 18th level of hell by Elder Mo with his walking stick. But, the matter of preparing for pregnancy, with so many people watching, Jin-won did not know where to put her hand. Should she put it on her belly for show? Or should she and Mo Jingshin sat on the sofa? The man's hand held hers again. Their hands intertwined naturally, and he placed them on his lap, finally giving her the most suitable place to put her hand. Chapter 77. By the afternoon, more than half of the guests had left. The official birthday banquet would begin in the evening. The Mo family did not continue to receive guests from outside. Those who stayed in the guest hall were the immediate family members of the Mo family, or relatives and friends who were very close to them in terms of social status. Grandfather Mo, I didn't have the chance to speak earlier. This is the gift our Ji family has prepared for you. Ji Mengran stood by the table and took out an exquisite antique box. When she said this, she intentionally glanced at Jin-won. Jin-won sensed her gaze but did not react. When the relatives at the table saw that someone had started this again, all kinds of special gifts were placed on the table one by one. This time, they were no longer casually stacked on the gift racks. Instead, they took the initiative to open the gifts and show them to the old man as if they were presenting treasures. Ji Mengran saw that the time was right. She abruptly opened her mouth. Big sister, why haven't I seen your birthday gift? Quickly take it out for Grandfather Mo to see. I dare to believe that your birthday gift will definitely be very special. As she spoke, she winked at Jin-won. She smiled brightly, appearing innocent. It is indeed special. After all, it wasn't easy to obtain. Jin-won took out the red sandalwood box that she could not tell what was inside and placed it on the table. Seeing that the size of the box was the same as the chessboard that Ji Mengran had previously given her, Ji Mengran's eyes revealed a hint of excitement. When Ji Hongwon saw the box that Jin-won took out, his brows imperceptibly furrowed. Grandfather, this is a surprise for you. I believe you will definitely like it. Jin-won placed the box in front of Elder Mo's eyes, her smile sincere. Elder Mo was smiling. Before he could speak, Ji Mengran suddenly stared at the red sandalwood box. She spoke with a shocked expression. It can't be, big sister. This is the birthday gift you want to give to Grandfather Mo? Jin-won was unruffled. What is it? Ji Mengran maintained her shocked expression. Looking at the size of the box, what is inside? Could it be our family's early Tang chessboard? A few days ago, Dad lost his most beloved antique. I didn't expect you to secretly take it away. Sis, I know you want to please Grandpa Mo, but you can't steal Dad's most treasured antique to present Buddha with borrowed flowers. At this moment, Ji Hongwon could barely sit still. My little daughter has a loose tongue. Elder Mo, please don't take offense. Nuan would definitely not do such a thing. As for this jade chessboard. Shen Haru suddenly spoke up from the side. I was just saying that a few days ago, I felt that something was missing from the antique shelf in your study. I didn't expect that Jin-won had actually secretly taken it away. As she said that, Shen Haru shook her head and sighed. Ji Hongwon had originally planned to admit to her mistake after his initial shock. However, he did not expect Ji Mengran to actually say such a thing out loud. He immediately wanted to slap her to death. Ji Mengran had already spoken and could not take it back. She looked at Jin-won fearlessly. However, she did not see any signs of shock, panic, or even fear on Jin-won's face. She had finally found an opportunity to cause Jin-won to lose her footing in the Mo family. She could not let it go so easily. All the relatives and friends present had differing gazes. However, because Elder Mo maintained a cold expression and did not speak, no one dared to casually slander her. However, in such a matter, even if the elder wanted to protect Jinwan, he most likely would not be able to do so, right? On the elder's 80th birthday, she gifted a Tang Dynasty eunuch as a burial item. Furthermore, it was a eunuch who died a horrible death by 1,000 cuts. This was simply unreasonable. Mo Jingshan sat by the side with an indifferent expression. Only when the show was almost over did he coldly sneer. Ji Mengran saw that Mo Jingshan did not immediately speak up to protect Jinwan. She guessed that he also felt that Jinwan had gone overboard with this matter. She then said, "Brother Jingshan, I didn't mean to say such words in such a situation. Compared to my big sister's face, Grandfather Mo's health is more important. Gifting such an item is really not good. That's why Mo Jingshan's eyes carried a slight smile. He did not look at Ji Mengran but calmly glanced at the unopened red sandalwood gift box in front of Elder Mo. Chapter 78. Ji Mengran's expression stiffened. Because of Mo Jingshan's nonchalant words, all her efforts were immediately put on the table. She bit her tongue, turning to Shinharu for help. However, Shinharu did not look at her, only sitting by Ji Hongwen's side as though this matter did not concern her. Back then, they had agreed not to drag her into this. Ji Mengran's chest felt stifled, but she could only endure it. She stared at the gift box. After all, with this thing here, Jinwan would not be able to escape responsibility. From what I see, we should hurry and open the gift box to take a look. Ji Mengran insisted. Jinwan smiled, calmly reaching out. However, the moment her hand touched the gift box, she suddenly received Elder Mo's gaze. The elder could tell that Jinwan had fallen for his trap. To prevent her from being put on the spot, he used his gaze to warn her not to open the gift box. If it really was that thing, not only would he feel unlucky, but many of the famous people present were also superstitious. If it really was what Ji Mengran said, Jinwan really would not be able to find a way out. Jinwan gave the elder a reassuring smile. Her hand gently pressed against the box, and the expensive red sandalwood gift box was instantly opened. The moment she saw the item placed neatly in the center, Ji Mengran, who had just stood up due to her agitation, immediately trembled. How was this possible? She had clearly handed it to Jinwan earlier, but it was not. Seeing the item in the box, Ji Hongwen, who was by the side, immediately released a sigh of relief. However, he immediately furrowed his brows, coldly glancing at the petrified Ji Mengran. This brat was courting death. She had really thrown away the Ji family's face. "Grandfather, this is just a farce. I've let you watch a joke." Jinwan smiled leisurely. "When Jingshen and I went to buy a gift, Jingshen said that you have a preference for ancient chess. This ancient chess manual was left behind by the famous Gu Shiyan during the late Tang Dynasty. It has been passed down from generation to generation and was carefully treasured by the imperial palaces. Even now, it is still well preserved. I hope you will like it." Elder Mo was stunned for a moment, as though he could not believe it. When he returned to his senses, he happily reached out to receive it. He opened it and flipped through it, happily nodding his head. This child, are really thoughtful. This is indeed something that I've always wanted to collect but could not obtain. I never thought that I would be able to obtain it before I was born." Mo Jingshan raised his hand and gently pressed down, gesturing for Jinwan, who had been standing by the table, to sit down. When he spoke, his voice was the same as before. "Nuan specially requested the chess record for you. It took her a lot of effort." The old master nodded happily. He couldn't take his eyes off the chess record in his hand. He kept looking at it carefully page by page. Obviously, he treasured it very much. Jinwan quietly held Mo Jingshan's hand under the table, whispering, "You clearly won it. How can you say that I begged for it?" Mo Jingshan's voice was low but gentle and clear. "My body is yours. The things I win, of course, are also yours." Jinwan, it was as if he had been flirted with again. Sitting across the table, Ji Mengran's face had already turned pale. She was flustered and wanted to say that Jinwan was clearly holding the chessboard, but now she was being stared at by all sorts of gazes. Her father was also giving her a warning look. She raised her eyes to look at Jinwan. For a moment, she did not know how to smooth things over. What should she do now? The people seated were all very astute. Everyone could tell that she had purposely dragged Jinwan into the water earlier. How could she explain herself in a reasonable manner? It seemed like no explanation would make sense. Mengran. Jinwan's voice suddenly came. It carried a hint of coldness, and she had called out to her in front of everyone. Ji Mengran abruptly raised her eyes. Right now, she was both afraid and hateful. The fear in her eyes could not be hidden. Jinwan's tone dragged out slowly, but it carried a hint of coldness that could not be ignored. I'm afraid there must be some misunderstanding between us. This is also your first time at the Mo family home. Why don't you follow me to the backyard for a walk? Let's have a chat? Ji Mingran's face paled. After so long, she already knew that Jinwan was no longer the same person who would allow herself to mess around. Aside from the Ji and Mo families, there were also many famous people present. She had really suffered a huge loss. Ji Mengran lowered her head and did not speak. However, she did not plan to follow her. Ji Hongwen angrily said, "Why aren't you leaving with your sister? Do you want to continue arguing in front of so many people? Your sister has already given you enough face." Elder Mo also abruptly said, "Indeed, I think there seems to be some misunderstanding between you sisters. This is the first time this old man has seen a younger sister frame her older sister in front of everyone. If you have anything to say, go to the back and speak." Ji Mingran's expression became even more flustered. Her eyes flickered, not daring to look at them or Jinwan. From the start, Jinwan did not plan to completely fall out with Ji Mengran so quickly. Firstly, she had not found a suitable opportunity. Secondly, she wanted to use this opportunity to clearly understand Ji Mingran's methods. However, right now, this opportunity was extremely suitable. Since Ji Mengran did not wish to have a good life, she could not blame her for being impolite. Ji Mengran followed Jinwan out of the banquet hall. Jinwan did not speak along the way. Ji Mengran followed behind, her heart secretly beating like a drum. When they reached a place in the Mo family's backyard where there were fewer people, Jinwan turned around. At the same time, Ji Mengran raised her head to stare at her. She seized the opportunity to speak first. "Sister, I'll be frank with you. Today's matter was indeed intentional. However, it was also because previously you put." An extremely loud slap rang out. It was crisp and sudden, causing the helpers passing by to jump in fright. Ji Mengran was so shocked that she could not even maintain an expression. She did not dare to believe that Jinwan had actually slapped her. What was even more unbelievable was that the person who slapped her was the Jinwan who had always given in to her and doted on her since she was young. Ji Mengran raised her hand to cover her face. She was so shocked that the muscles on her face froze. After a long while, she screamed in disbelief, "Jinwan, you actually slapped me, pa." Another clean and ruthless slap flew over, causing Ji Mingran's face to turn to the side. Jinwan's icy voice carried a frosty coldness. "I slapped you. Shameless, shameless, and endlessly seeking death." Ji Mengran screamed in anger, "Jinwan." She had never been slapped by anyone in her entire life. However, she was actually slapped by Jinwan. She was even slapped twice. Ji Mengran was so angry that her entire body was trembling. "Jinwan, what I hate the most is your self-righteous arrogance. Why do you always have to stand on top of me? Why can you?" Jinwan coldly smiled, raising her hand to slap her again. Ji Mengran did not expect there to be a third slap. She was slapped silly, and her entire face froze in place. Chapter 79. Because I'm your older sister. Because everything I've obtained is fair and above board. No matter how arrogant and conceited I was, I've never schemed against my own family or even thought about my own sister's husband. Ji Mengran, this is called being shameless. Jinwan did not hesitate in the slightest. She did not give her any face. Ji Mengran was stunned. In the next moment, She was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She did not expect Jinwan to know everything. So, everything she did, Jinwan saw it all? She deliberately beat her at her own game? Was that why the tables had turned so suddenly today? Ji Mengran suddenly felt afraid. She held onto her reddened face and sobbed weakly, I didn't think much of it. I just couldn't stand the way you treated Brother Jingshin in the past. I feel that you've let him down and let him down. That's why All of a sudden, Ji Hongwen walked out. Clearly, he had heard their conversation earlier. Jin Wan saw him and expressionlessly walked to his side. Dad, you handle this. Finishing her words, she walked out of the backyard without turning back. Ji Mengran turned back to see Ji Hongwen's heavy expression. She was so frightened that her face turned pale. Dad, Ji Hongwen did not speak. The moment Jinwan walked away with her back facing them, with a pa sound, he raised his hand and sent a slap toward Ji Mengran's face. Ji Mengran was caught off guard and was slapped to the ground. She raised her head, looking at the furious Ji Hongwen in fear. A chill of fear spread from her limbs and spread throughout her body. What you said earlier, was it all true? Ji Hongwen furrowed his brows. Ji Mengran looked at him, crying. I really just felt that older sister isn't worthy of Brother Jingshin and felt unfair for him. I can explain what happened today. Stupid. Ji Hongwen's eyes were filled with anger. How could I have a daughter like you? After so many years, I've seen many grudges between rich families, but I didn't expect my own daughter to do such a lowly thing. Ji Mengran looked at Ji Hongwen's expression, not daring to say a single word. Her entire face was pale to the point of being transparent. The guests at the banquet had already forgotten about the little episode just now, and the congratulatory words of birthday came one after another in the guest hall. Elder Mo responded with a smile and carefully placed the chess record that he had been holding in his hands like a treasure into the red sandalwood box. At the same time, he called for Mo Jingshin to sit by his side. The grandfather and grandson sat together. Mo Jingshin's smile remained mild. After all, Elder Mo had seen everything that had happened earlier. Does that Ji Mengran have feelings for you? Elder Mo spoke in a low voice that only Mo Jingshin could hear. I understand the Ji family's situation. She felt that he really planned on agreeing to the elder just like that. The guests gradually dispersed. It was no longer early. Mo Jingshin was the eldest grandson of the Mo family. It was unavoidable that he drank a few cups of sake. Originally, he planned on driving home, but he decided against it. Grandfather Mo asked him to stay the night in the Mo family's old residence. After they got married, Jinwan had not stayed in the Mo family home. It was only today that she found out that Mo Jingshin rarely came back to stay, but here, his room was cleaned every day. Although the Mo family's old residence was called an old residence, most of the buildings in the house were not old. Only the front three-story building with a simple front hall was somewhat old. However, the elder cherished the past and did not rebuild it. The few villas and pavilions at the back were all very beautiful. They were situated at the foot of the mountain range. It was said that the building closest to the mountain had a spring that was discovered several decades ago. However, outsiders were rarely allowed to soak in the hot spring. Only the Mo family had the right to do so. This place was situated at the foot of the mountain and had the fresh air. Furthermore, it was blessed with the peace and health that was hard to come by in the city center. In the middle of the house was a multi-story villa. The entire third floor belonged to Mo Jingshin. Chapter 80. In the dead of night. Jinwan could not find a hairdryer in the bathroom and came out with a towel wrapped around her hair. The moment she walked out, she saw that Mo Jingshin had just entered. He carried with him the chilly air of the autumn night and the fresh scent of the Mo family's old residence. Under the light, his expression was gentle. When he saw how she looked when she came out of the shower, his gaze deepened. By this time, all the guests had already left. There was no need for Mo Jingshin to continue staying in the guest hall. When her father and Auntie Shen left, although their expressions were not as happy as the others, they still brought Ji Mengran into the car. At that time, Jinwan did not look at Ji Mengran's expression. From the corner of her eye, she could see that she was slightly disheveled. She did not even dare to greet her before entering the car and closing the door. Today, regarding the matter of grandfather's birthday gift, although I was not the one who suffered a loss, there were so many guests present. Earlier, when you sent them off, many of them must have mentioned this matter to you, right? Jinwon asked. Mo Jingshan lowered his head to glance at her. Today, the people who stayed behind all knew how to write the word propriety. Although they mentioned it earlier, once they stepped out of the Mo family's door, no one dared to say a single word to outsiders. Jinwon was startled. Did you say something to them when I wasn't around? Don't worry about them. I'll deal with it. Mo Jingshan was unperturbed. You did well today. You killed the chicken to warn the monkey. In the future, those who are secretly against you will not dare to do anything to you. Be Mrs. Mo in peace. I'll handle everything. Oh, then what did grandfather say? Of course he'll side with you. Although grandfather is old, he sees things very clearly. That's good. I don't mind leaving a bad impression in other people's eyes. But with Ji Mingran's actions today, although she did not receive any benefits, it can be considered a small farce. No matter how you look at it, it won't be good. Mo Jingshan's gaze was dark as he watched her. Grandfather will never let you suffer a loss in the Mo family. Tonight, there will definitely be someone who won't be able to sleep, but that person will definitely not be you. Jinwon instantly felt as though she had eaten her fill. She pursed her lips. Regarding today's matter, my dad must be extremely angry. Both the palm of his hand and the back of his hand are meat. Both sides are his daughter. Mo Jingshan's voice was low and heavy, calm as usual. Do you think he didn't notice that Ji Mingran's actions weren't normal? It's just that he didn't want to say it out of respect for his daughter. In today's situation, he was also forced to this step by his second daughter. You didn't do anything wrong, don't take it to heart. Oh. Jinwon raised her hand to hold up the towel that was about to fall off her head. She wiped her wet hair with the towel and paused for a moment before asking, "What about you? If I really fell for it today and lost all my face, what would you do?" Mo Jingshan lowered his gaze to look at the little woman who had just showered. Her face was still slightly damp, and he reached out to pinch her chin. You still have Shinharu in front of you. Letting her off today is on account of the Shung family and the Ji family. But if she really wants to push you into an unbearable situation, I don't mind using her severed son to threaten her. Let's see if it's more important to be at odds with you or her son's life and future. The man's voice was low and mild, but Jinwon's heart was completely at ease. On the importance of having a good husband. Right now, she completely understood that Mo Jingshan would only do one thing, and that was to give Jinwon a sense of security that no one could replace. No matter what, he would definitely be able to help her solve any problem. Even if she was careless and fell for someone else's scheme, he would not give her a chance to lose. The next day, in order to merge her two small real estate companies into a large studio, Jinwon sorted out the financial and project information. She was so busy that she forgot to eat and sleep. It was already past 10 o'clock in the evening, but Mo Jingshan had yet to return. Jinwon stretched lazily and picked up her phone to check the time. She saw 2 missed calls from Xia Tian. She had been busy earlier and had a 2-hour video conference with the studio. She had switched her phone to silent mode. Jinwon dialed Xia Tian's number, and the call was quickly connected. Xia Tian's voice was ambiguous. "Nuan, did your husband tie you to the bed? He's finally willing to let you take time to look at your phone?" Jinwon pursed her lips. Mo Jingshan should be busy tonight. He hasn't returned yet. He's not home? Then why did you take so long to call? I thought you and Mo Jingshan would have sex every night, doing all kinds of positions. Jinwon turned to sit by the bed, picking up a pillow and hugging it in her arms. Can you stop thinking about such things? An unmarried man is even more ferocious than a married man like me. Xia Tian chuckled, sitting on the bed and taking a bite of watermelon. Jinwon had not had time to go to the hospital recently. She asked tentatively, "Recently, you've been so quiet. You haven't even called me a few times. Is someone accompanying you?" Xia Tian stuffed a lot of watermelon into her mouth. Her tone was muffled. "How did you know?" Jinwon's heart sank. The man who knocked you earlier, is he chasing you? Xia Tian almost choked on the watermelon. She coughed several times before cursing hoarsely. What the heck? Do you know how to calculate? I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've become a half-immortal. Jin Wan's expression turned cold. As expected, Xia Tian's half-concealed and slightly bashful tone was very familiar to her. Everything was as she had expected. It was just that she hadn't visited him for a period of time, but that bastard still managed to take advantage of her. The next morning, before 7 o'clock, Jin Wan directly drove to the hospital. She had just stepped out of the elevator and had yet to reach the door when she saw Xia Tian being supported by a tall and thin man from the public bathroom. Xia Tian raised her eyes to see Jin Wan. She was immediately shocked. Wan? Jin Wan did not say a word. Her gaze coldly swept past the man's face. She pushed open the door and walked in. Only when Xia Tian was supported in and sat on the bed did the tall man turn to look at Jin Wan. He reached out a hand to her and said politely, "You're the good friend Jin Wan that Tian often talks about? Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Li Minzhen." Jin Wan appeared not to have heard him. She sat on the sofa by the side of the ward, expressionless. She was unprecedentedly cold. Chapter 81. Jin Wan's aura was too cold today. She did not give him any face at all. Xia Tian sensibly allowed him to leave first. When only the two of them were left in the ward, Xia Tian leaned against the bed. Wan, your aura earlier was 8 meters. It was so cool. Jin Wan's face was expressionless. What happened? Did you treat what I said earlier as a fart? Xia Tian clearly did not expect Jin Wan to be angry to the point of scolding someone. Her expression was slightly embarrassed. I didn't forget. This surnamed Li has been chasing after me for many days. I never agreed. Why did he come to the hospital early this morning? A few days ago, he came to the hospital again because of my hospital fees. We casually chatted for a while and then he often came to visit me. He is a gentleman, polite, and considerate. I don't know how to reject his good intentions, but I swear, I don't have any feelings for him. After all, we haven't known each other for long. I can only say that I think he's not bad. So now you tacitly agree that he is chasing after you? Xia Tian acted as though she was a kindergarten student being lectured by the teacher. You can say that. After a long while, Xia Tian saw that Jin Wan seemed to be really angry and said, "Don't be angry. We didn't go any further. It's just that he was going to fly to S City this morning. Before he went to the airport, he first came to the hospital to see me. He was going to leave just now, but I suddenly wanted to go to the washroom, so he helped me there. But I swear he was waiting outside the washroom. There was absolutely no flirtatious or unnecessary contact between us." Seeing that Jin Wan was expressionless, Xia Tian no longer joked around and became serious. We definitely won't develop to the stage you think we are. Believe me. Only a fool would believe you. If it weren't for the fact that she could not speak about her rebirth, Jin Wan really wanted to reveal the truth to Xia Tian and let her know how much she had fallen for this scum. She had been pregnant, miscarried, broken hearts, and sent to death. Each and every one of them was a bloody lesson. How's your leg? After a moment of silence, Jin Wan changed the topic. Xia Tian was caught off guard by the sudden change of topic. She paused for a moment before replying, "It's okay. If I hold a pair of crutches, I can walk 2 laps around the ward. However, my leg bone hasn't been completely reconnected yet, so I don't dare to stand directly on the ground for now. I'll go ask the doctor and see if you can be transferred to another hospital." Jin Wan stood up to leave. Hearing this, Xia Tian raised her eyebrows. Transfer? Jin Wan turned back and glanced at her. Even if the one surnamed Li was the one who injured you, you don't have to worry about the fees. From now on, you can cut off contact with your family. You don't want to go home now, but it's not like you're cutting off your relationship with your family. You have your card with you, and you can afford any expenses. If you're afraid of trouble, leave the transfer to me. Just stay away from that scum. Xia Tian held her forehead. You sound like my mother. Jin Wan paused and said, I'm probably more worried than your mother right now. I even know a lot about that guy surnamed Li. Do you want to hear it? Your tone is very mysterious. Quickly tell me, what's his situation? He's the owner of a bank. His family already has a fiancée, but he likes to pretend to be a warm gentleman outside. Every few months, he would pick up all kinds of innocent young ladies. Countless women have had abortions and broken hearts because of him. Xia Tian supported her chin with one hand as she sat on the bed. She nodded calmly. As expected, he's a scum. So, do you want to be the mistress that he secretly dates outside behind his fiancée's back? Or do you want to be slapped in the face by the various mistresses and fives that he continues to date? Xia Tian rolled her eyes. I already said that I don't have any feelings for him. At the very least, I haven't reached the stage where I have feelings for him, and you've already killed it. Then immediately transfer to another hospital. Tell him to scram as far away as possible. If I want to transfer to another hospital, I have to get the doctor's signature, right? Nuan, I was just about to ask you. Do you know my attending doctor? Jean Wan paused. After a few seconds, she replied, not very familiar. Not familiar? That attending doctor of mine has a poker face every day. I heard from the nurses that his personality has always been so cold. At first, I didn't think it was a problem, as long as my leg injury could be healed quickly. But I realized that every time I mentioned your name in front of him, his gaze seemed to be able to freeze me to death in an instant. Jean Wan shifted her gaze. Why did you mention my name in front of him? A good bestie. Usually, when I'm bored in the hospital, when I chat with the doctors and nurses, I can't help but mention you. Xia Tian spoke in a loyal tone. How about it? See how much I love you. Love my ass. But then again, that ice block face of his, and he always wears a mask. Up until now, I still haven't seen what he looks like. I only know that others call him Dr. Sheng. If it wasn't for the fact that every time I mentioned you, his expression would become even colder, I wouldn't have asked you if you knew who he was. His temper is so bad. How did this kind of person become an orthopedic doctor? I heard that he's even a provincial expert. Jean Wan's expression did not reveal any emotions. Perhaps it's because the last 2 times I came to the hospital, I didn't secretly give him a red packet. He felt that I, as a patient's friend, wasn't very sensible. He doesn't seem like someone who would fuss over such a small profit. Tisk, it's fine if you're not familiar with him. Xia Tian's expression appeared as though she did not want to be frozen again. I think it's best if you don't look for him about the hospital transfer. If it doesn't work out, Dr. Sheng's face will most likely be covered in ice again. After a moment of silence, Jean Wan said, I'll think of another way. I'll use my connections and try to get you transferred to another hospital before tonight. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Although Dr. Sheng's temper isn't good, his medical skills are still very good. If you're afraid that I'll meet that person again, at most, I'll make things clear with him and stop interacting with him in the future. In any case, I don't have any interest in him. No, if you break it off, then break it off completely. You have to transfer. She could not leave even the slightest bit of hope. In this life, Jean Wan definitely wanted to see Xia Tian happily grow old with a truly good man. She definitely would not allow any scumbag to get close to her. Xia Tian, our family's Nuan's domineering manner is actually a little handsome. Jean Wan ignored her and was considering if she should ask Dr. Qin for help. At this moment, Xia Tian suddenly said, Damn, I forgot to look at the time. It's actually 6:50. Dr. Xing comes every morning at this time for his ward rounds. Right now, he should be almost here. She had just finished speaking when the sound of approaching footsteps could be heard from outside. Nuan, do you want to hide for a while? Dr. Sheng's ice-cold gaze is very powerful. I'm afraid you won't be able to take it. Xia Tian wore a paparazzi expression that seemed to be sniffing out some gossip. She winked as she spoke. Chapter 82. Jean Wan raised her eyes. Her gaze landed on the white silhouette that had just entered. Hi, Dr. Sheng. The moment the door opened, Xia Tian raised her small hands and waved at the person in front of the door. The man who entered was dressed in the hospital's white gown. His figure was tall and slender like a jade tree. The moment he saw Jin Wan, he immediately furrowed his brows. When Jin Wan's cold gaze landed on him, his brows furrowed even more. Dr. Xing, I didn't have the chance to introduce you properly the past few times. This is the best friend I've always mentioned, Jin Wan. Xia Tian introduced with an expression as though she wished for the world to be in chaos. Dr. Sheng's face below the bridge of his nose was covered by a mask, revealing only a forehead that was as clean as snow and a pair of eyes that were as cold as a river. For an instant, the room was so quiet that even the drop of a needle could be heard. Jin Wan's gaze was cold and indifferent as she stared at him. There was even a hint of mockery in the corner of her lips. Their gazes met. In less than 2 seconds, Dr. Sheng's cold gaze moved away from her cold and imposing face. He calmly said, I've seen her before. I have some impression of her. Xia Tian appeared as though she had discovered a huge piece of gossip as she sat on the bed. She opened her mouth and was about to continue speaking when she was interrupted by Jin Wan. Jin Wan's exquisite features carried traces of coldness. Her words carried a hint of teasing. Dr. Xing, I plan to help Xia Tian with the hospital transfer procedures today. You're her attending doctor. The transfer procedures will require your signature before we can proceed. I'll have to trouble you to sign for us. Transfer? Dr. Sheng's cold gaze finally shifted toward Jin Wan. She doesn't want her legs anymore? What? She can't be transferred? Jin Wan faced him expressionlessly. Right now, her legs can't withstand any movement. The slightest jolt on the bus will be enough to cause the unconnected bones to be slightly dislocated. If she plans on walking uncoordinated for the rest of her life or becoming a cripple, I don't mind signing for her to be released right now. As he spoke, Dr. Sheng's calm and indifferent gaze landed on Jin Wan's face. Jin Wan furrowed her brows imperceptibly. A fracture was indeed not a small matter. If there was even the slightest dislocation during the healing process, it would greatly affect Xia Tian's future. Although he had to guard against that scumbag, he couldn't let anything happen to Xia Tian's leg. It's fine if she doesn't want to transfer, but I'll have to trouble Dr. Sheng to keep a close eye on her ward. Don't let those people who don't know anything come in. Right now, the person closest to her is only me. If she's really too bored while she's in the hospital, Dr. Sheng can come and chat with her when you're not busy. This kind of request isn't too much, right? Xia Tian stared at them for a long time. She didn't see or hear anything from their conversation. After staring for a long time, she suddenly heard this sentence and her face turned green. Let this ice cube come to the ward to talk to her? It would be better to leave her alone. Dr. Xing didn't know how to say nice words to coax the patient, and he was a big iceberg. No matter what she said, he almost didn't care. If he really came to talk to her, it would probably be awkward from the moment he walked in. How awkward? Dr. Xing's brows were cold. I don't have time. Xia Tian thought in her heart. That's right. He doesn't have time, so there's no need for this doctor to come and accompany her. However, Jin Wan unhurriedly curved her lips. She suddenly leaned closer to Dr. Sheng. Dr. Sheng's brows paused. Because of her approach, his dark eyes trembled. In that moment of absent-mindedness, he heard Jin Wan softly say with a smile that was not a smile, "A few nights ago, something big happened at the bar on the east side of the city that alarmed the police and the media. At that time, I happened to pass by. If I didn't see wrongly, you were there as well." The man's brows were hidden behind his mask. He glanced at her, but his expression did not change. There was no hint of surprise. A doctor actually has time to go to a bar at night? I wonder what exactly he did there. Jin Wan stared at him, speaking unhurriedly. He only looked at her and did not speak. Can't you empathize with a patient who's lying alone in the hospital? Xia Tian has been taken care of by you ever since she was hospitalized. Regardless of the patient's emotions or physical condition, I believe that Dr. Xing should pay more attention to them. A doctor should be benevolent, shouldn't you? Jin Wan curved her lips at him, but her smile did not reach her eyes. Seeing that the two of them were actually whispering to each other, Xia Tian could not hear anything. She was so anxious that she wanted to jump out of the door. However, right now, she could not even touch the walking stick by the bed, much less get off the bed. She could only glare in Jinwan's direction with an unhappy expression. I heard that the Sheng family has two successors. One has cancer, and the other has been detained for stealing trade secrets. Jinwan raised her brows. I don't think you can be an orthopedic doctor for much longer. Dr. Sheng's gaze darkened. Jinwan, what do you mean? What I mean is very simple. I want you to take good care of my friend and arrange a ward for her where no one can casually disturb her. If anything happens to her here, I will not hesitate to reveal what happened back then. Right now, it's a crucial time for you to officially return to the Sheng family. You need an honorable reason, but I, with a single word, can destroy your reputation. Jinwan finished speaking and looked at him coldly. How is it, Dr. Sheng? My personality right now is not as easy to handle as it was several years ago. It's just a small request. Are you still not going to agree? Dr. Sheng did not speak. After a moment, he said mildly as though he had no tone, You seem to know a lot about the Sheng family's matters. Jinwan chuckled softly. I've already said what I need to say, Dr. Sheng. 10 minutes later, Jinwan received a call and left. Xia Tian sat on the bed with a dazed expression. She watched the man who had one hand in his white pocket and did not leave for a long time. That Dr. Sheng? Xia Tian stared at him in shock. Are you going to continue your ward rounds? The man in front of the ward glanced at her. His gaze was indifferent, as though he did not have any emotions. What did Jinwan mean by leaving this block of ice in her room? After not receiving a response for a long time, Xia Tian obediently laid on the bed, tugging the blanket upwards. Her gaze occasionally drifted toward the ice mountain by the door. It was as though a century had passed when Dr. Sheng's low and cold voice suddenly rang. What do you want to talk about? Xia Tian almost jumped up from the bed. She stared at him in astonishment. Her lips trembled for a long time before she swallowed her saliva. She carefully said, Really? The man furrowed his brows. His gaze remained cold and he did not speak. She did not expect that he would actually agree to Jinwan's request. Xia Tian suddenly spoke as though she had been blessed. That, chatting is secondary. If you don't want to talk, I won't force you. But, can you remove your mask for me to take a look? Dr. Sheng looked at her coldly. After a moment, he silently raised his hand to take off his mask. Chapter 83. MO Corporation. The doors to the large conference room on the 20th floor opened. The various levels of management filed out. Shen Mu followed behind Mo Jingshan, holding a stack of documents in his hands. As he read through them, he softly explained to Mo Jingshan several suspicious points from the meeting earlier. Mo Jingshan returned to the company's top floor. His long legs stepped out of the elevator. Secretary In, who had been waiting for a long time, approached him. So Mo, the Ji family's miss is here. Earlier on, you were in a meeting, so I had her wait for you in the office. Secretary N's smiling eyes met his gaze. The Ji family's miss? Mo Jingshan's words did not waver. If the person who came was Jinwan, and Shu Yan would definitely not use such a form of address. Even if she did not address Jinwan as Mrs. Mo, she would not use such confusing terms. Secretary N slowly smiled at him. Mo, there are still some documents to tidy up in the secretary's office. I'll go get busy first. Mo Jingshan only listened and did not respond. He returned to the office. The moment he entered, he saw the so-called Ji family's miss. Ji Mengran was currently tidying up the documents on the CEO's office. There was a cup of freshly brewed coffee on the table. Mo Jingshan's expression was as cold as ice. What are you doing here? Ji Mengran raised her head and smiled at him. Brother Jingshan, have you been very busy recently? Mo Jingshan stood in front of the office door. The door was open, but he did not enter. His cold tone became heavier. This is not a place you can enter. Get out. Ji Mengran had just tidied up a stack of documents. Hearing his words, she obediently placed the documents back in their original positions. She then raised her eyes and smiled at him. Earlier on, I only wanted to wait here for you and help you tidy up. Seeing that you don't even have a cup of coffee, I personally brewed one for you. Hurry and try it. I don't know if you prefer American or... Mo Jingshan's brows were slightly stern. The Mo Corporation doesn't lack secretaries or assistants. There's no need for you to do such things. I rarely drink coffee in the office. You can leave now. Ji Mingran didn't seem to hear his intention to drive her away. She moved away from his desk and walked closer to the door. As she walked, she said obediently, I know. My sister has been spoiled for a long time. She can't do this kind of thing. I just helped you tidy it up. As she spoke, she paused, her gaze seemingly glued to his body. Brother Jingshan, I can explain what happened at the Mo family that day. Mo Jingshan furrowed his brows. Ji Mengran bit her lip. At that time, I really didn't have any ill intentions. I just accidentally said the wrong thing. Then Big Sister slapped me hard on the face and I accepted it. I've never done anything wrong since I was young. The first time I did something wrong, she slapped me hard 3 times. Today, I'm here to... Ji Mingran's eyes widened. After being grounded at home by her father for several days, she finally seized the opportunity to run out of the Ji family home when Ji Hongwen went to the neighboring city to discuss a collaboration. Shen Heru did not look at her too harshly. Ji Mengran had thought about it for the past 2 days. Since Ji Nuan had made things clear that day, she couldn't act the way she did in the past. If she wanted to obtain this man, she had to adapt to the situation. As long as she persevered, she did not believe that Mo Jingshan would not be able to see her sincerity. 3 slaps? It seems like Ji Nuan was merciful. Based on your uninvited actions today, it's only right for her to slap you 10 times. Mo Jingshan expressionlessly interrupted her. Ji Mengran suppressed the unwillingness in her heart. She choked for a moment before saying, Did you really not notice that Ji Nuan has changed a lot? In the past, her words and actions were very straightforward. She would never beat around the bush when doing things. But the current Ji Nuan, no matter what she says or does, it seems like there's a purpose to it. She hides a lot of thoughts. I suspect that the reason she suddenly approached you is because she has some ulterior motives. Brother Jingshan, you mustn't be deceived by her. Although she knew that Mo Jingshan would not easily pay attention to her words, Ji Mengran still wanted to remind him that Ji Nuan's change was definitely not that simple. It had already been so long. She did not believe that he had not suspected Ji Nuan's change. Mo Jingshan's lips curved up imperceptibly. It seemed like a smile, but it was cold and devoid of warmth. Ji Mengran instinctively tensed up. The Ji family's second miss came to my place to stir up trouble, and the person she's stirring up is even her own sister. Is this how your Ji family's upbringing is? Ji Mengran composed herself and smiled meaningfully. Our Ji family's upbringing. Brother Jingshan, can't you see it more clearly in my sister? Mo Jingshan's lips curved even deeper. His gaze also became much colder. Ji Mengran did not look directly into his eyes. In the past, the one who caused trouble in front of you was clearly Ji Nuan. Brother Jingshan, you're so good to her. She's not worthy of your protection. In the past, she didn't seem to have a good upbringing in front of you. So, what's so good about Ji Nuan? If you had even half of Ji Nuan's upbringing and awareness, you wouldn't be thinking about your sister's husband. Mo Jingshan's thin lips spat out these cold words. He was extremely harsh. Scram. Ji Mingran's face instantly turned red and white. After being stiff for a long time, she bit her lips harshly. Brother Jingshan, I just want to talk to you more. I don't have any other intentions. There's nothing wrong with liking someone. Besides, back then, Ji Nuan only married you unwillingly. It's only a family marriage. If it weren't for the fact that I'm still a year away from the legal age of marriage, perhaps the person who married you would be me. Mo Jingshan was cold and indifferent. Do you think that if the Mo family randomly shoves a fiancée into my hands, I'll definitely marry her? Ji Mengran heard the hidden meaning in his words and secretly furrowed her brows. Did he mean that if it wasn't for Ji Nuan, he would not have agreed to marry her? She took a deep breath and suddenly turned around to pick up the coffee on the office table. She walked over and said earnestly, Brother Jingshan, no matter what you think, I've already said it. This is the coffee I personally brewed. Try it. Mo Jingshan was unmoved. Ji Mengran insisted, It's really delicious. I remember that in the past, Jin-won didn't even know how to brew coffee. I don't think I'm worse than Jin-won in any way. I can even improve myself for you. Right now, I don't even know what Jin-won's motives are. I'm afraid that one day, you'll be hurt by her. The coffee was handed over, but Mo Jingshin did not take it. He did not even have the intention to extend his hand. His tone was mild. I don't hit women. Are you going to scram yourself, or are you going to call the Mo Corporation security up? Ji Mingran did not have any intention of leaving. She continued to stare at him. At this moment, the sound of high heels hitting the ground could be heard from outside the office. Chapter 84. Secretary N saw the displeasure in Mo Jingshin's eyes and softly explained, "Mo, when you were in the meeting, the front desk called and said that Miss Ji wanted to see you. I thought it was Mrs. Mo, so I did not dare to let them stop her and directly let her in. When she came up, I only recognized her as the second miss of the Ji family. However, she had already arrived at the office and said that she had something important to discuss with you. I saw that she was Mrs. Mo's family member and could not be considered an outsider, so I made the decision to let her enter the office." Mo Jingshin's eyes and brows were cold as he smiled. To be able to make such a low-level mistake, Secretary N, it seems like America's high evaluation of you needs to be examined. Secretary N's expression slightly hardened. After 2 seconds, she softly said, "So Mo, I'm very sorry. In the future, I won't make such a mistake again. I won't let anyone unrelated to the company in, much less let them enter your office." Mo Jingshin's expression was unreadable. Jin-won is also unrelated to the company. When she comes, what do you plan to do? Secretary N did not immediately reply. After a moment of silence, she replied, "If it's Mrs. Mo who comes to the company, I will first call Mo to ask for instructions. After asking, I ask for instructions?" From the corner of Mo Jingshin's eyes, he coldly glanced at Ji Mingran, who was still standing there. He only glanced at her indifferently before speaking to Secretary N coldly, "Is this your true plan?" Secretary N lowered her eyes. Her voice was still calm and gentle. "Mo, I don't understand what you're saying. Aside from Jin-won, anyone who comes to the company to ask to see me, have them look for Shinmu first. If there's a need, have him let them in." Mo Jingshin placed one hand in his pocket. The door to the office was closed. His voice was low and calm, neither fast nor slow. "As for Secretary N, I should indeed ask for instructions from America to see if there's a need to keep you in the Mo Corporation." The 2 words "ask for instructions" were inadvertently emphasized by Mo Jingshin, causing one to feel a chill. Secretary N instantly pursed her lips and raised her eyes. "So Mo, if you think that letting Mrs. Mo's sister up today was a wrong decision, you can punish me according to the employee rules. In these few days that I've been in the Mo Corporation, other than abiding by my duties, I've never done anything wrong. If CEO Mo wants to send me back to America now, won't that seem a little too selfish?" The corners of Mo Jingshin's lips curved into an unnoticeable, cold smile. "I'm selfish? What is Secretary N's motive for doing today? I only let the Ji family's daughter up because I considered that she is Mrs. Mo's." Secretary N calmly explained. "From now on, you can use this as a logical excuse to remind me that I should distinguish between business and private matters in the company. From now on, even if it's Jin-won, she will have to go through you before she can enter the company?" Mo Jingshin narrowed his eyes, interrupting her. His face was clear and light in a smile, but it caused one to tremble. Secretary N perfectly displayed her good upbringing. She smiled slightly and revealed a bit of stubbornness. "I am only trying my best to do my job. The CEO's office is not a domestic market. There should be rules. Previously, I saw that you allowed Mrs. Mo to enter and leave as she pleased, so I thought that you would not be too strict with her sister." Secretary N's expression changed. Her voice paused. In order not to anger him, she softly said, "I've just arrived at the Mo Corporation. 2 days ago, I didn't stay for too long at the Mo family home before leaving. I'm not particularly familiar with CEO Mo's habits and the people around you. I'm very sorry for this mistake. In the future, I definitely won't make it again. There's no future, Mo Jingshan slowly and coldly said. Secretary N's brows furrowed. Mo. Mo Jingshan's voice was very low, revealing an unapproachable coldness. 4 days later, America's Shine will be signing a contract in the country. After the collaboration dinner, you'll go back with them. Secretary N gripped the documents in her hands tightly. She could barely maintain the calm she was supposed to have. Mo, are you in such a rush to chase me back to America? Shine suits you better, he coldly said. Secretary N was silent for a long time. After a long while, she raised her eyes and softly said, "For days later, is it? Then in the 4 days that I'll continue to work by your side, I'll continue to abide by my duties and do what I need to do well. I'll also prepare for the handover in 4 days. In the past few days, thank you for taking care of me, Sil." Mo Jingshan appeared as though he did not hear anything. He had already entered the office. At the same time, his gaze coldly glanced at Ji Mengran, who was still standing by the door. His voice, however, was directed at the person outside. "Bring this person out the way you brought her in." Secretary N turned to look at Ji Mengran. Ji Mengran still wanted to say something, but when she received Secretary N's warning gaze, she paused for a moment. She could only softly say, "Brother Jingshan, Secretary N is a very good person. Don't send Secretary N away because of me." After speaking, she appeared to be very understanding as she walked out. The office door closed with a pang. Ji Mengran glanced at the closed door and softly complained, "I really don't know what he's thinking. What's so good about Jinwan? She has so many tricks up her sleeves and often flaunts her love. Brother Jingshin is such a low-profile person, yet he allows her to flaunt her love." Furthermore, Secretary N did not speak. She only looked at the door that isolated them outside. She had known Mo Jingshan for many years. She could tell that he was mature and calm. She also understood that he was low-profile and reserved. Accompanying a woman to flaunt their love was something that he would disdain to do. Did he really love Jinwan that much? Mo Nwan's studio, conference room. Jinwan came directly after receiving the call from the hospital. The two companies had just merged into a studio. There were still many complicated matters waiting to be dealt with. Before entering the conference room, she sneezed twice. She clearly did not catch a cold recently. Why did she suddenly sneeze? Who was scolding her behind her back? "Boss Nwan, the meeting is about to begin. Are you feeling unwell?" Xiao Ba, the intern assistant who had just arrived, asked with concern. "I'm fine." Jinwan walked in. Today was the first management meeting after merging the two companies into Mo Nwan's studio. After Jinwan sat down, she looked around at everyone's expressions. She had a rough idea of what was going to happen. After all, they were the management left behind by Han Tianyuan. What had to happen would happen sooner or later. Half an hour into the meeting, the HR manager stood up and said, "Miss Ji, I've decided to resign." Jinwan's gaze was calm as she glanced at him. "Reason? It's impossible for me to work under a 20-year-old woman. A young lady wants to lead these two companies, vainly try to interfere in the real estate industry, and even merge into some studio. From the way I see it, your concept and thinking of the company are not mature enough. The management system of the studio is also very weak. There is no future for me to develop here." Chapter 85. Jinwan calmly sipped the coffee that Xiaoba had just handed over and did not immediately respond. Afterward, several other managers stood up. Most of them were important managers or department heads. "I'm sorry, we also intend to resign." Jinwan put down the coffee, her lips curving into an unfathomable smile. "Anything else?" The conference room fell into silence once more. It was as though everyone could imagine how flustered and helpless Jinwan must be right now, and how she had lowered herself to beg them not to leave because of the lack of suitable managers. However, no one expected that Jinwan's response would be such a cold word. The HR manager who had taken the lead paused. "Miss Ji, what do you mean by this? The few of us resigned after careful consideration. We did not discuss it in private. Are you implying that we deliberately incited everyone to leave with us? Jean Wan calmly raised her brows. Did I say that? You took the initiative to resign. Firstly, I didn't reject you. Secondly, I didn't give you any face. Why are you so agitated? Seeing her indifferent attitude, the HR manager felt that he was being looked down upon by a 20-year-old girl. Originally, he wanted to give her a show of strength. However, he did not expect that this young lady of the Ji family, who was once famous in Haicheng, was completely unmoved when it came to management. The expressions of the managers who had just submitted their resignations all changed. The conference room was deathly silent. Those who have submitted their resignations today, after the meeting ends, go to the finance department to collect your salaries, Ji Nuan unhurriedly said. Those who remain, if you have any thoughts on the studio's development, I'll give you 3 days to write a letter and send it to my email. After the studio is officially established, the salaries of the remaining managers and employees will be doubled. Ji Nuan took another sip of coffee, calmly glancing at the various expressions in the conference room. Where were we? Let's continue the meeting. By the time the meeting ended, it was already past 8 in the evening. Ji Nuan walked out of the conference room with Xiao Ba following closely behind her. Boss Nuan, did you notice that those people's faces looked like they couldn't hold it in anymore? Ji Nuan curved her lips. Ever since these two companies fell into my hands, those subordinates who used to follow Han Tianyuan have all harbored their own thoughts. If they want to leave, they can leave. Could it be that they are waiting for me to ask them to stay? With that, she looked back at Xiao Ba. But why do you always call me Boss Nuan? Xiao Ba shyly raised her hand and pushed up the black-rimmed glasses on her face. A few days ago, everyone called you Zhou Ji, but those managers all said that you're too young to be called COG. Didn't they just call you Miss G in the conference room? I can't stand their stares, and I don't want to lose my job in the studio, so I call you boss. Ji Nuan, Han Tianyuan, that trash, what kind of people did the company recruit? Most of the management didn't have much ability, and the few who took the initiative to resign today were just what she wanted. Among the remaining employees, there were many who were lazy and did not have any professional knowledge of the market. This seemingly diligent and energetic intern assistant turned out to be a nerd with a slightly low EQ. His straightforwardness could only be described as cute. At the same time, Ji Nuan glanced at an office not far from her. Several secretaries were secretly putting on makeup in front of the computer. Their eyes glanced out and caught sight of her. Frightened, they hurriedly hid the makeup bag in their hands into the drawer. Ji Nuan was about to enter when all of a sudden, her phone rang. She picked up the phone, glancing toward the office once more. Mo Jingshan's voice that was as pleasant as a clear spring came from the other end of the phone. You didn't go home? I'm still in the studio. I just dealt with some management matters and will be heading back soon. After receiving the call, Ji Nuan's stern expression instantly softened. Studio? I merged the two companies I bought from Han Tianyuan and renamed it Mo Nuan Studio. How about it? This name sounds good, right? Mo Jingshan chuckled softly. Not bad. Ji Nuan was about to ask for some credit for this name and see if the great CEO Mo would give her some face and officially give it a name. Before she could open her mouth, she heard Mo Jingshan ask, "Where's the studio's location?" At Jin Lin Building. You drove? I did, but there's no parking lot here. The car was parked a little far. As she spoke, Ji Nuan glanced out the window. It was actually raining outside. It was already autumn. At this time, it was raining heavily. The temperature outside would most likely be very low. Wait, I'll come pick you up. After speaking, the man hung up the phone. Ji Nuan did not bring an umbrella with her. There were too few parking spaces nearby, and the car was parked a little far away. If she just went out like this, it would definitely not work. Since her husband had decided to come pick her up, there was no reason for her to stand on ceremony. However, this place was quite a distance away from Mo Corporation. Furthermore, it was currently a rainy night. The road conditions were most likely not good, and the traffic was heavy. Ji Nuan decided not to rush. She turned around and entered the office. When the secretaries in the office saw Ji Nuan enter, they subconsciously stared at the computer in front of them, pretending to be working overtime. Today's overtime is because the various departments are busy organizing the company's information and connecting the various departments. Do you all have nothing to do? Jin-won asked. One of the especially beautiful secretaries glanced around. Seeing that no one answered, she coughed and spoke up, I'm a secretary. Those matters are not under our control, secretary? Then what about them? We're also secretaries. The other young secretaries also spoke up. Their eyes would occasionally glance at Jin-won, observing if the legendary #1 socialite of Haicheng was really that beautiful. Previously, there were only 2 small companies. Why are there so many secretaries? Jin-won turned back to glance at Xiaoba. Secretaries were not the same as secretaries. To put it nicely, they were called secretaries. To put it bluntly, they were just little girls who worked part-time as typists and photocopied documents. Xiaoba lowered her head and did not dare to speak. Jin-won glanced at her again. Xiaoba then softly said, It's because Tohan used to be here, that he hired them to be secretaries. Why did he hire so many? Xiaoba lowered her voice even more. Because they're beautiful. When they came to apply, even if there weren't any suitable positions, Seo Han would arrange for them to be in the secretary's office, which happens to be facing his office. Jin-won's temples instantly throbbed. As expected, she was scum. Bring out their information. Let me take a look. Xiaoba made an "oh" sound and rushed to look for the information. The so-called secretaries in the office all perked up their ears to hear their conversation. One of them felt that she would not be able to stay here for long. She stood up unwillingly and began to silently pack her things into her bag, planning to leave. Chapter 86. Due to Jin-won's threatening tone, the secretary paused for a moment. She then raised her head and said with disdain, Che, aren't you just relying on the fact that your family has some stinky money? Do you think you're very capable just because you bought 2 companies? Jin-won smiled faintly. You're not convinced? How would I dare to not be convinced? You're the Ji family's young lady. Hasn't the company been consolidated into some studio? I'm sure Miss Ji won't be able to tolerate us. Rather than waiting to be chased out by you, I'd rather leave myself. With that said, the clerk gave a look to the other colleagues, and the other clerks started to pack up without a word. Jin-won glanced at the secretary who was the first to rebel. She nodded her head in approval. Self-awareness isn't a bad skill. Before you leave, remember to turn off the lights in the office. The electricity here isn't for you to hide behind the computer and put on makeup. Xiaoba had just returned with the personal files of the secretaries. Jin-won received it and saw the photo on the file at the very top. It was the one who had taken the initiative to argue with her earlier. That secretary suddenly sarcastically said, The Ji family's young lady is still short of such a few yuan in electricity bills? We're not very clear about your personal situation, but we heard that you married into the famous Mo family in Haicheng. Is the Mo family Seo your husband? You've been married for quite a long time, but you haven't gotten pregnant yet. You'd better not be infertile. Otherwise, you'll be kicked out sooner or later. The Mo family definitely won't want a chicken that can't lay eggs. The moment she finished speaking, the other secretaries all laughed mockingly. Jin-won did not get angry and instead smiled. She casually tossed the personal file in her hands onto the table by the side. This file is yours? 30 years old, unmarried, and staying in such a small company for an entire year without leaving. Are you delusional enough to climb up to the Han family? Not to mention that Han Tianyuan can no longer see the light of day. Even the previous him had slept with so many women. With your looks, I'm afraid you won't even be able to climb onto a proper hotel bed. That secretary instantly glared at her. What nonsense are you spouting? I'm only 23 years old. Oh, it seems like you purposely lied to others about your age. But according to your ID, you're indeed 30 years old. At the same time, Jin-won glanced at her chest. That's right, I was just about to ask, where did you get your chest done? To be able to grow from an airport to such a large size and yet only have a slight sagging, the plastic surgery hospital must be quite good. She pointed at the photo on the file in her hand. This photo should have been taken more than a year ago, and her upper body could be seen. Is this how Miss G slander people? My breasts are real. The secretary was so angry that her eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Don't be so agitated. The prosthesis on the chin is almost crooked from anger. The double eyelids were done many years ago, right? Don't think that just because you are, the Lee said, bye, and to say, gee, that you don't think that just because you're in charge of this place, you can say whatever you want. The secretary's lips turned green. The photo from before is right here. I wonder if Han Tianyuan would have given you the opportunity to be a secretary if he had carefully looked through your file. Jean Wan casually placed the other people's files to the side. That secretary immediately rushed forward and picked up her own file. She quickly stuffed it into her bag and turned to leave. However, when she saw that it was raining heavily outside, she turned back to glare at Jean Wan. She took out her phone and made a call. After the call connected, she said sweetly, "Dear, I'm off work. The rain outside is too heavy. Can you drive over to pick me up?" After that, she hung up. She turned back and rolled her eyes at Jean Wan in disdain. She said with some pride, "There are plenty of men chasing after me. Seo Han is just one of them. As long as I beckon with my finger, all the rich men will line up to the end of my office. As for this broken place of yours, this great aunt doesn't want to stay anymore." Finishing her words, she twisted her waist and entered the elevator. Jean Wan looked at that figure and instinctively tugged at the corner of her lips. She had no intention of quarreling with others. However, the vases and trash that Han Tianyuan had brought in earlier, she could not possibly be so bored as to raise them. Jean Wan turned around and returned to her own office. 10 minutes later, Jean Wan left the studio and went downstairs. She saw that the secretary from earlier was standing in front of the revolving door on the first floor. Beside her were 2 other secretaries from the same office. A luxurious car worth $1,000,000 stopped in front of the door. That secretary immediately raised her brows in pride. She turned back and saw that Jean Wan had also come down. She immediately revealed an even prouder smile at her. Under the envious gazes of the 2 colleagues by her side, she raised the bag in her hand to cover her head and ran down the stairs. When she reached the car door, she opened it and bent down to say to the person inside, "Dear, my colleagues aren't being picked up. Can you send them home on the way?" After that, that secretary turned back and called for the 2 female colleagues to enter the car. She then rolled her eyes at Jean Wan in disdain and sat in the car while twisting her waist. She then closed the door in a confident manner. In the car, the 2 female colleagues could not stop exclaiming and praising, "This is really too rich, isn't it? It's the latest model of Porsche, ah. I also wish to have such a rich boyfriend. I'm really too envious. Wow, there's even a bouquet of blue roses in the car. Aw, dear, your boyfriend is really too romantic." That secretary smiled delightedly. She turned and kissed the man in the car. At the same time, she used a disdainful gaze to glance at Jean Wan, who was still standing alone in front of the building. The envious voices in the car continued. In the rainy night, the sound of an engine suddenly came from outside. The black and noble car easily overtook this car in the midst of the crowded cars and neatly stopped in front of the building. Holy shit! One of the female colleagues looked out with sharp eyes. Rolls-Royce Commemorative Limited Edition Ghost. Ah? Is this the legendary Ghost worth over 60 million yuan? Heavens, this car is too cool, isn't it? It's really so cool. This car is too cool. The design of the car body is really nice. It's really the most eye-catching one out of all the luxury cars here. If I can sit in this kind of car, I wouldn't have lived my life in vain. Who is this car here to pick up? I heard that this seems to be the car of MO Corporation, so the car instantly fell into a deathly silence. MO Corporation's CEO? MO Jingshan. Chapter 87. The women in the car each had their own thoughts, but their eyes were filled with excitement as they stared at the man who stepped out of the Ghost. The man was dressed in a cold-colored suit. His figure was slender and well-proportioned, and his casual posture and steps appeared very upright. After he stepped out of the car, he held a black umbrella in one hand and removed his similarly cold-colored long jacket with the other. He approached Jinwan and held the umbrella firmly over her head. There was no hypocritical romance like casually gifting her a bouquet of blue roses. Instead, the lofty man personally stepped out of the car, stepped across the rain-soaked asphalt, and held the umbrella over Jinwan's head. The moment he approached, he directly draped the jacket over Jinwan's back. At the same time, his long arms reached out to pull her into his embrace to prevent her from being drenched by the wind and rain outside the umbrella. The legendary Mo Jingshan was said to be extremely cold and difficult to approach. However, in front of Jinwan, he did not put on any airs at all. His meticulous care surpassed everything else. Mo Jingshan lowered his head to see that Jinwan's complexion was slightly pale from the wind. He held her as they walked toward the car. "I asked you to wait obediently, not to run out and wait in the wind. I calculated the time and felt that you would arrive soon. I was afraid that your appearance in my small studio would cause too much of a commotion, so I came down first." Jinwan touched the jacket that was just draped over her body. "I have a jacket on me. Quickly put it on." Mo Jingshan pressed down on her hand that was about to take off the jacket and directly brought her to the car. He opened the door for her to enter first. The wind and rain outside were very heavy. Jinwan was brought all the way to the car, but she was not drenched by the rain at all. She did not even feel the slightest bit wet. After Mo Jingshan entered the car, he prompted her to fasten her seatbelt. Outside the car, the sound of the rain was soft, and the man's voice was especially seductive. "Why are you so gloomy? In a bad mood?" Jinwan tugged on her seatbelt and casually answered, "No, it's just that I just merged the studio. There are many people and things that need to be sorted out. I'm a little tired." Mo Jingshan glanced at her listless expression and lightly snorted. "Treating your husband as a decoration? From the very beginning, I never intended for you to interfere in the purchase of these two small companies. Mrs. Mo, do you really want to achieve something yourself? If I can't make myself better and more qualified to stand by your side, there will only be more and more people gossiping behind my back. They can't wait for me to sink into the dust and widen the gap between us," Jinwan said half-jokingly. Mo Jingshan's lips curved. "Dust? Even if someone presses you into the ground, I can still pull you out." "That's not necessarily true. When I'm by your side, others probably don't even dare to touch a strand of my hair. But what if one day you're not by my side?" Jinwan had only casually said this because of her previous life's experience. Mo Jingshan suddenly turned around, glancing at her. Mo Jingshan's sudden glance confused her. She thought he was dissatisfied with her words, so she didn't continue to talk nonsense. Indeed, everything from her previous life was in the past. The current her was definitely in control of the direction of her life. The gains and losses and fears of the past should not continue to affect her. She thought Mo Jingshan was slightly displeased, but why was it that after only a moment of silence, the man suddenly leaned over? Jinwan raised her eyes to meet his black eyes due to his familiar scent. She was stunned for a moment. "Why are you?" She was astonished, and the sound she made was completely swallowed by him. The rain outside was heavy. There were cars speeding by in front, and the street lights on the left illuminated the area. Even though the car windows were completely shut, from the angle of the front window, they could more or less see the situation inside the car. Jinwan frantically raised her hand to push him away, but the man did not stand on ceremony. He abruptly bit down on her lips, forcing her teeth apart. Slowly he kissed her inch by inch. Warm and strong hands moved down from her shoulders, pulling her into his embrace through the seatbelt. Jinwan was slightly dizzy from the kiss. She panted and tried to avoid it, but the man's kisses landed on the side of her neck and ears. He kissed her earlobe, moved around, and sucked on her collarbone. He moved down, biting the edge of her collar as he tugged it down. Jinwan's hair that was scattered behind her was slightly messy as it circled around her fair neck. "This is in the car." Jinwan struggled to find her voice, but it was only a soft moan. Mo Jingshan's kiss continued, not giving her the slightest chance to retreat. He entangled the kiss and slowly moved down the side of her neck. Jin-won was kissed so hard that she couldn't control herself. She whispered a reminder in his ear. Her voice was unbelievably soft. She hooked her arms around his neck and gripped the collar of his shirt tightly, as though she was afraid that she would slip from the seat. Her body seemed to be on fire. Her hand moved down, and her eyes were misty as she pressed her fingers against his shoulder. Even the passing cars can see it. Mo Jingshan paused and did not continue. After 2 seconds of silence, he lowered his voice against her neck. I won't bully you here. His voice was very low and hoarse. Was this not considered bullying? It was as though the car was about to shake right here. Everything was fine, and he suddenly kissed her. He clearly knew that she could not resist his kiss and was almost subdued by him here. Jin-won glanced sideways, secretly glaring at the man who had returned to control the steering wheel. In the Porsche opposite, although they could not see clearly, they could vaguely see Jin-won being pressed against the car and kissed for a long time by Mo Jingshan. All of them swallowed their saliva in envy. For a man like Mo Jingshan, not to mention his illustrious family background or his outer appearance, he was definitely the best in the world. Furthermore, his figure was also extremely good. It was likely that in bed, he would definitely be the type that would make women wish they were dead. She then looked at the skinny, fake nouveau riche in the car. In an instant, she felt that there was no way to compare them. It was as though they were billions of light years apart, like the difference between clouds and mud. The two female colleagues only quietly glanced at each other, not daring to show all of their disdain on their faces. However, the clerk sitting in the front row already had a sour expression on her face. She stared at the black and noble limited edition Ghost as it steadily drove away from the building with a sweet-sounding engine sound. After returning home, Mo Jingshan did not speak. Jin-won thought that after driving for so long, he should have already calmed down. Perhaps tonight, she could check the office's email before sleeping. In the end, the moment she entered the password and the door opened, before Jin-won could even change her shoes, she was suddenly pulled in by the man. She could not even make a sound before she was kissed. Following that, her nose, cheeks, ears, chin, and finally her lips. Jin-won wanted to ask why he was suddenly so passionate tonight. There were clearly no signs of ambiguity earlier. Chapter 88. Jin-won did not have the time to think. All of her consciousness was carried by the man, and the moment she fell onto the sofa, it disappeared into nothingness. Mo Jingshan knelt by her side, trapping her beneath him. His kisses moved down her neck bit by bit. Jin-won placed her hand on his shoulder, softly saying, "Wait a minute." The man's movements did not stop. His low and hoarse voice whispered by her ear. She pushed against his shoulder even more forcefully, raising her voice slightly. "I thought of a few problems that I discovered in the studio earlier. I need you to help me analyze them. After all, this is my first time managing. I'm not as skilled and decisive as you. I don't need you to interfere in other aspects, but I still need you to help me with some decisions." He paused, lowering his eyes to look at her. "Must you say it now?" "It's not that it has to be now, but I made a bet with my father. It's already been half a month, and there's still no progress in the studio. I'm afraid that if it continues to be delayed." Mo Jingshan's elegant and deep brows rose slightly. "With me around, what are you afraid of? I just want you to find some time to be my strategist. It's not like I want you to waste so much effort to interfere with my studio." He chuckled softly. "Your studio has my name, but you don't plan on letting me interfere. Am I just wasting my time? My studio is just a small studio. You're usually very busy. I don't want to waste too much of your time and energy." Time and energy can be accommodated, but it also depends on who it's being used against. Mo Jingshan sighed, smiling as he leaned down once more. "Every time, you're always thinking of ways to find a topic to talk about. Can't you take the initiative tonight? Don't change the topic. You're clearly the one who interrupted my main topic." The man kissed her cheeks from time to time and said casually, "If you have any questions, sort them out and send them to me tomorrow." If you really can't cope with the management who just took over, I can transfer the elites of MO Corporation's personnel department to help you. Of course, if you need, I can go there myself. That's not necessary. It's not that I can't cope with it. Although I'm very confident about the future development of the studio and the profits it can make, after all, I haven't learned much about financial management. I feel that sometimes I'm a little stubborn. If I'm too stubborn, it may have the opposite effect. But if I don't establish my authority, I can't control those people. If the studio wants to develop steadily in the long run, interpersonal relationships and management are also very important. If she allowed Mo Jingshan, this god, to enter her small studio, those people would most likely explode. And you're right. Mo Jingshan sat down by her side. Jinwan thought he wasn't going to continue, but he put her on his lap. He kissed her face again, which made her heart itch, but she couldn't resist it at all. Her whole body was hooked, and she leaned softly in his arms without the strength to move. Then, do you think I should find some time to learn about business management? Previously, in order to allow me to work at G Corporation, my dad had signed me up for some related courses, but I never went, Jinwan said softly as she leaned against his chest. The man's low chuckle seemed to come from his chest. She could clearly feel it in his embrace. She was about to ask him why he was laughing when her ear was bitten by him. She hissed in pain and raised her hand to cover her ear. She turned to see Mo Jingshan's eyes were as dark as the deep sea as he softly said, "Your husband is already impatient. Do you really have to talk nonsense with me here and now?" Jinwan did not immediately retort and only glared at him. Ever since Grandfather Mo's birthday, he had indeed restrained himself for a few days. 2 days ago, he was busy at the company, and she slept early. Mo Jingshan pulled her hand over, pressing it against a certain part of his body. Jinwan subconsciously tried to pull her hand back, but he held it firmly and she could not do so. Her entire face instantly flushed red. Mo Jingshan, you want to sleep early? He pressed against her ear, the warmth of his breath teasing her ear. Tonight you take the initiative. I'll let you off after just one time. If I were to continue like this, Jinwan's breathing became heavier. She did not dare to move her hand, but for some reason she asked, "Will it really end after just one time?" The man did not speak, but he had already kissed her cheek, tickling and teasing her. What counts as taking the initiative? She did not attempt to move her hand away. Jinwan thought that she had secretly watched many films when she was in school. Furthermore, 10 years later, the internet was too advanced. Many things could be found on software or on various small foreign websites. But facing Mo Jingshan, she was really at a loss. She did not know if she should learn from those films. After all, those kinds of things were a little too lewd. Besides, the men in those films were worlds apart from Mo Jingshan. Faced with him, Jinwan really didn't know how to deal with him. Mo Jingshan didn't know what to do. Mo Jingshan did not speak, only watching her with an unfathomable gaze. Finally, Jinwan raised her arms and wrapped them around his neck, instinctively kissing his chin. The man's hoarse voice finally came down to press against her lips. "In the U Garden, you secretly moved all my things back to the master bedroom. I thought you were going to use all your tricks to seduce your husband back to sleep with you. In the end, I was thinking too much." His teasing voice sounded by her ear. Jinwan's face instantly became as though it had been burned, turning even redder. Back then, she suddenly felt as though she had been reborn. Chapter 89. Jinwan was kissed until she was almost out of breath. She was finally released and took a few breaths of air, lying motionlessly on his shoulder. "You're not going to continue?" Mo Jingshan was given the cold shoulder by her. He lowered his eyes to look at the lazy little woman who did not want to move. Jinwan raised her eyes, her expression sincere as she negotiated. Then it settled. Just once. The man lowered his head to look at her. "It depends on your performance." She decided to continue nibbling on his chin. She raised her hands, nibbling and kissing while unbuttoning his shirt. When her hands touched a fiery, perfect chest, she could not help but softly sigh at the wonderful feeling. She raised her face to kiss his lips. There was no need for Jinwan to tease him for long. Her shaky and hard actions caused Emo Jingshan to reach the end of his patience. He carried her up, walked around the sofa, kicked open the bedroom door, and brought her into the bed. Jinwan's clothes had long been removed. Her skirt was lifted. She only whimpered once before the man's hand reached in. She bit her lips, unwilling to make a sound. He nibbled on her earlobe, his hot breath lightly blowing on her ear. He kissed it back and forth. Her ear turned from white to pink, and from pink to red. Broken moans slowly escaped from her mouth. Jinwan buried her face in his shoulder, feeling the movements of his hand. She could only tightly hold on to his half-open shirt, allowing the bone-chilling stimulation to attack her. All of a sudden, a wave of white light rushed toward her. She faltered, her body trembling uncontrollably. The sound that had reached her lips was stopped by his kiss. While she was still trembling, he had already pressed against her. Jinwan could not help but bite his ear as well. Her voice was soft and hoarse. Annoying, Emo Jingshan sucked in a heavy breath. It was not a bad idea to die on top of her. Let's see if you still bite me in the future. I'll bite you to death, Jinwan said harshly by his ear. She even used her teeth to harshly bite his ear twice. Emo Jingshan chuckled softly. He did not reply but softly said by her ear, "Go ahead." Jinwan's gaze faltered. Her face was still warm, but her legs had already been easily separated. The man had already charged in. It was too heavy, too deep. Jinwan did not recover for a long while until she heard him whisper for her to relax. She whimpered and glared at him secretly. Her body trembled. She hadn't gotten used to it yet, so how could she relax? Who was the one who said it would be over after one try? It was only 9 o'clock when he got home. It was almost midnight when he finally finished. No matter how Jinwan scratched and bit him, he did not relent. After that, he took Jinwan to take a shower. She wrapped herself in the quilt and was about to fall asleep. The phone on the bedside table suddenly vibrated. Jinwan opened her eyes and glanced at it. It was Emo Jingshan's private phone. Why would there be a call at this time? Is there something urgent in the company? Emo Jingshan was still in the bathroom. Jinwan hugged the blanket and sat up. She picked up her phone and saw that it was an unknown number. She picked it up. Jingshan probably won't answer the phone for a while. Call back later. Jinwan picked up the phone and didn't wait for the other party to speak, directly explaining the situation. The person on the other end of the phone was silent for a moment. Then, Secretary Anne's gentle and probing voice sounded, "Mrs. Emo? And Shuyen?" Jinwan's drowsiness instantly dissipated. She glanced at the caller ID and memorized it. She placed the phone back by her ear. "Secretary Anne? Calling your CEO Emo so late at night, is there something urgent?" "My apologies, Mrs. Emo. I've disturbed your rest. I know that CEO Emo has a video conference with the American side at 1 o'clock tonight, so he shouldn't be resting at this time. That's why I called." Secretary Anne politely and gently said, "His other phone should be out of battery. That's why I called him." Jinwan did not speak. Calling someone else's husband in the middle of the night. Furthermore, her motive for returning to the country was so obvious. It was impossible for her to have no motive at all. "I wanted to talk to CEO Mo about tonight's video conference. After all, it's a collaboration with America's Shine Group." Secretary N's voice paused for a moment before softly saying, "Also, I wanted to ask CEO Mo, did I leave my lipstick in his car?" Jinwan calmly glanced at the time. "Oh, lipstick is it? When I came back with him last night, I really didn't find anything of yours in his car." "Then perhaps it fell outside," Secretary N softly said. "When I got off work tonight, I had just left the company when my car suddenly broke down by the roadside. The rain was too heavy, and coincidentally, CEO Mo's car passed by. I asked him to give me a ride. Before I left the car, I used the lipstick to touch up my makeup. When I returned, I realized that the lipstick wasn't in my bag. I thought I left it in CEO Mo's car." Jinwan held the phone and slowly smiled. "There really isn't anything of yours in his car. Think carefully again. Did you leave it somewhere else? It's only a lipstick." Which brand is it? If Secretary N likes it, I can help you buy another one tomorrow. There's no need for that. I'm really sorry for disturbing Mrs. Mo by calling so late at night. It's fine. Today's rain was really heavy. It should be getting colder soon. Secretary N, remember to wear more clothes and bring an umbrella to work tomorrow. Alright. Thank you, Mrs. M. You're welcome. Ji Nuan indifferently glanced in the direction of the bedroom door. She heard the sound of the bathroom door being opened. She softly said, Jing Shen has already showered. Don't you have a video conference to discuss with him? Do you need me to pass the phone to him? Then I'll have to trouble Mrs. Mo. Secretary An's voice still carried a hint of a smile. Ji Nuan got off the bed and walked out of the bedroom. She saw that Mo Jingshan was really planning to go to the study. Hubby, Secretary N's call. Ji Nuan's voice was gentle as she walked over. When he turned back to look at her, she directly handed the phone to him. Mo Jingshan had just showered. His eyes were still filled with satisfaction. After showering, his expression was refreshed. His refreshing scent was mixed with a hint of late-night laziness. Ji Nuan did not look at him. She handed the phone over and turned to return to the bedroom. In the end, she had only taken 2 steps to the side when her waist suddenly tightened. The man's arm directly reached over to carry her back. Ji Nuan turned back to glare at him unhappily. Mo Jingshan did not let go of her, using his other hand to answer the phone. Secretary N specifically told me just now that when she got out of the car, she touched up her makeup at the last minute and even reapplied her lipstick. Why is she wearing lipstick? Why did you tell me so deliberately? Ji Nuan looked at Mo Jingshan without blinking. Mo Jingshan did not speak but silently watched her. After a moment, he softly asked, You don't believe me? I believe you. The corners of Ji Nuan's lips curved into a deep smile, but she was secretly gritting her teeth in displeasure. But your secretary N chose such a time to call me. It's clear that she's using her little tricks to declare war on me. Could it be that I should calmly pretend that nothing has happened? How could she not believe Mo Jingshan? Furthermore, after being kissed by him for so long, there was not the slightest hint of another woman. Whether her man was clean or not, how he behaved, she was naturally clear. But what exactly was it that made Secretary N, who had been slowly advancing step by step, to suddenly make such an extreme move? Did she no longer plan to continue playing her role as the CEO's secretary? Mo Jingshan's gaze indifferently swept toward the phone on the sofa. His gaze was cold and calm. He did not say a word, and it was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. Just as Ji Nuan did not plan on dwelling on this problem at such a late hour, the man's voice suddenly came from above her head. What kind of car do you like? Ah! Ji Nuan was startled. She was still in his embrace, but her brain could not keep up with this rhythm. What car? In the future, leave that ghost in the company for public use. Let's change to another one. Mo Jingshan's gaze was clear and deep. He watched Ji Nuan's slightly confused expression. Change car? Ji Nuan almost choked on her own saliva. Although she was slightly disgusted by the fact that Shu Yan had sat in his car today, she was not that crazy. Furthermore, that Shu Yan sat in the back row. Usually, Shen Mu or others would occasionally sit in the back row. This did not make her feel disrespected or anything. Mo Jingshan's thoughtfulness in this aspect was not something many men could achieve. Thus, Ji Nuan did not feel the need to change cars. Furthermore, this was a car that was worth more than 60 million yuan. And it was a Rolls-Royce commemorative limited edition Ghost. The current price was like this. 10 years later, it would only be more expensive. To collectors and luxury car enthusiasts, the price might even exceed hundreds of millions. Even when she was born in the Ji family, she had never squandered tens of millions without batting an eyelid. There's no need to change cars. I quite like this Ghost. I'm not that unreasonable. Ji Nuan pursed her lips. The man chuckled lowly by her ear. You like the Ghost? The other models of this car are also not bad. There's really no need to change. You're throwing a car worth more than 60 million yuan in the company for public use. You might as well use money to kill me. Jin-Wan raised her hand and patted his chest. However, she did not hit it hard. It was more like a tickle. She glared at him, threatening, "You're not allowed to change. Aren't you unhappy?" Mo Jingshan's voice was very low by her side. His voice was still magnetic and pleasant to the ears. Jin-Wan could hear the indulgence and compromise in his tone. She could tell that he really did not intend for her to suffer such grievances, even if it was a small grievance that others purposely created out of nothing. "If you dare to change the car, I'll be even more unhappy." Jin-Wan turned and bit down on his chin. In any case, it was almost time for his meeting in America. No matter how she bit him, he could not throw her back onto the bed in the bedroom. The man's gaze immediately darkened. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. "Then how can I be happy?" Jin-Wan leaned into his embrace. She narrowed her eyes and smiled. "Don't touch me for half a month. Let me rest for a while. How about that?" The man did not speak. Jin-Wan thought that since he was willing to change a car worth 60 million yuan, he would be able to compromise over such a small matter. In the end, Mo Jingshan threw her a meaningful glance. He calmly said, "No. Jin-Wan, 60 million yuan, and you're going to throw it into the company without batting an eye. You actually won't agree to such a small request of mine?" Mo Jingshan released her and turned toward the study. Without turning back, he said, "Don't even think about it." Chapter 91. The next morning, Jin-Wan did not drive herself. Instead, she sat in Mo Jingshan's car to the studio. When she entered the car, she casually scanned the interior of the car. In the end, she finally found a golden square tube of lipstick in an inconspicuous gap in the back seat. Jin-Wan reached out to retrieve the lipstick. She opened it to take a look and raised her brows in a light smile. When Mo Jingshan saw the lipstick, he calmly glanced at it. His tone was the same as last night. "Are you sure you don't want to change the car?" "I'm not changing." Jin-Wan curved her lips, playing with the lipstick in her hand. "Anyway, what I mind is not the car, and her motive is not this lipstick." Mo Jingshan's thin lips curved slightly. This little woman said that she believed him and seemed to have thought it through, but her words still carried a hint of jealousy. In the afternoon, Secretary An drove out of the company. She suddenly saw Jin-Wan walking past the plaza in front of the company with a small gift bag in her hand. "Mrs. Mo?" Secretary An stopped the car by her side. She politely nodded and smiled at her. Jin-Wan turned back to look at her before glancing at her car. Secretary An's car was repaired very quickly. "It broke down last night, and you can already drive it out normally today?" Secretary An smiled lightly. "Last night, I called the car dealer over. Their efficiency is indeed very fast. When I came to work today, I saw that the car had already been repaired and sent back. Not bad. Last night, it rained so heavily. Furthermore, it was outside of working hours, yet their efficiency is still so fast. It seems like I can visit this car dealer often in the future." Jin-Wan handed over the exquisite gift bag in her hand as she spoke. Secretary An was startled. "This is? Last night, your lipstick was indeed left in Jingshan's car. I only saw it this morning." Jin-Wan smiled indifferently. "It's a pity that I only found out when I sent you to the car wash. When the workers were cleaning the car, they accidentally wet your lipstick. I felt it was a pity to see that. Coincidentally, I don't have anything on today. Before I came, I bought a new lipstick of the same design." "Mrs. Mo, there's really no need. It's just a lipstick. You don't have to buy me a new one. Besides, I accidentally left it in Seo Mo's car." The smile on Secretary An's face was polite and distant. She pushed open the car door and alighted. She was very considerate and polite as she stood beside Jin-Wan to talk. Jin-Wan noticed this detail and realized that Secretary An really knew how to conduct herself well. She curved her lips slightly and calmly said, "It was already late last night, yet you still specifically mentioned the lipstick over the phone. I thought this lipstick was very important to you. I've already bought it. In any case, this color doesn't suit me. Secretary An, you should just accept it." As she spoke, she threw a small gift bag containing a lipstick into the car's seat through the window. Secretary Ann could not refuse and could only smile at Jin-won. How about this? I'll be heading to the business hall to retrieve some things in the afternoon. I wonder if there are any good coffee shops along the way. Mrs. M.O., would you like to have a cup of coffee with me? I'll treat you as a form of thanks for buying the new lipstick for me. This time, you've really asked the right person. I do know a few good coffee shops. Jin-won was all smiles and did not reject anyone. Secretary Ann nodded and walked around the car with a smile. As she opened the car door, she said, "Then get in the car. Let's go have a cup of coffee together." It's hard to refuse such hospitality. I won't stand on ceremony, then. Jin-won smiled and entered her car. In the car, the two women casually chatted about random things along the way. However, it was as though they were purposely avoiding the topic of Mo Jingshin. They only talked about America's Shine Group and the various news in the country. They chatted and laughed as though they were having a good time. When they reached a street near the business hall, the two entered an elegant and clean coffee shop. Jin-won casually ordered a cup of mocha. Secretary Ann also ordered the same. Secretary Ann also likes to drink mocha? It's all right. I grew up in America, so I don't really drink all kinds of bitter coffee. However, mocha is indeed one of my favorites. Although Secretary Ann's lipstick is different from mine, the brand is the same. You also like to drink the same coffee, so our preferences are similar? Jin-won smiled as though it was unintentional. I just don't know if it's the same when it comes to liking men. Hearing these words, Secretary Ann was quiet for a moment. She then smiled. Mrs. M.O., you specially came to find me today to have a chat with me, right? Jin-won raised her brows. Then tell me, what do I want to talk to you about? Of course, it's to talk about Seo M.O., Secretary Ann calmly and fearlessly looked into Jin-won's eyes. Mrs. M.O. is a smart person. It's easy to talk to smart people. I don't need to play the role of an innocent person. To be able to come here from America, my goal is very simple and straightforward. It's just like the reason why Mrs. M.O. came to find me today. It's as simple and straightforward. So, Secretary Ann's lipstick is really just a cover? It's to lure me out and take the initiative to find you? Jin-won instantly smiled. Secretary Ann's lips curved imperceptibly. Uncle M.O. doesn't think highly of the marriage between you and Seo M.O. Grandfather M.O. is indeed muddle-headed. The so-called family's interests also have to be considered from a long-term perspective. Although the G family was once prosperous in Haicheng, the G Corporation's standards in all aspects are constantly declining. This marriage does not have the slightest bit of benefits for the M.O. family. It can barely be considered a match between the two families, but it's just barely. Speaking up to this point, Secretary Ann directly looked into Jin-won's calm eyes. Forgive me for being blunt. Mrs. M.O., your actions before and after marriage cannot be considered a good wife. Furthermore, I heard that a few months ago your relationship with CEO M.O. was not very harmonious. You really wanted a divorce. Jin-won chuckled lightly. As expected, Secretary Ann's call last night was to find an opportunity for this conversation. Since Secretary Ann has spoken so clearly, then I won't hide it from you. Jin-won supported her chin with one hand, blinking her eyes as she smiled at her. At the start, I was indeed not very used to life as a newlywed. I'm sure you also know how Jingshin is a person who is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. At that time, I didn't really understand him, so I always wanted to return to being single and regain my freedom. Secretary Ann looked at Jin-won, her eyes probing and sizing her up. Chapter 92. After Jin-won finished speaking, Secretary Ann, who had just received the coffee, could not help but tighten her grip on the stirring spoon placed on the cup's rim. I'm actually not very familiar with the matters between you and Seo M.O. Most of it was hearsay. Secretary Ann maintained a smile, but it was somewhat stiff. It seems like the relationship between you and CEO M.O. is really good. It's all right. Jin-won shyly supported her chin with one hand. She blinked her eyes and smiled at her. Yesterday, when you called, he had just gone to shower. If you had called a few minutes earlier, I don't think we would have been able to pick up the call, Ji-Nuan meaningfully blushed as she said. Also, that day, I was in Jingshen's office. Originally, we were being intimate, but suddenly, Grandfather Mo came. I shyly hid under his desk. You also know that I was actually in his office that day, but you don't know where exactly I hid, right? Secretary An did not speak. Her hand tightly gripped the stirring spoon in her cup. If Grandfather Mo did not suddenly come, Jingshen might have directly carried me into the resting room next to his office. He is usually cold and hard to get close to, but when it comes to the matters between husband and wife, he is always so passionate that I can't handle it. Secretary An's expression could no longer be described as simply stiff. Only the corners of her lips were still forcefully curved up. This meant that she was actually still smiling, but her smile was not that natural. I'm sorry. What was I saying to you just now? Secretary An, you're not married yet. This kind of intimate topic between husband and wife is really not suitable for you. However, a man's stamina is too good. It's really troublesome. Usually, he doesn't even let me have a good night's sleep. Ji-Nuan blinked at him, her smile full of sweetness and affection. Although Ji-Nuan was doing it intentionally, every word she said was the truth. Every action, every tone, and every expression could not be faked. This kind of shyness and contentment was also not faked. Happiness and shyness, both real and dazzling. Secretary An slowly took a sip of coffee and then raised her eyes to smile at her. It was clear that she had regained some of her composure. I really didn't think that you would be so blissful. After all, Mo once. Ji-Nuan smiled. He once what? My apologies. Secretary An subconsciously put her hand to her mouth, as if she had said something she should not have. This is, after all, Xiao Mo's personal matter. It's not good for me to say too much. It looks like Mrs. Mo doesn't know much about his past, so all the more I can't speak carelessly. Ji-Nuan nodded in understanding. We're all women, and we all have all kinds of curiosity that we shouldn't have. Your words have indeed piqued my curiosity. Just as Secretary An was about to speak, Ji-Nuan smiled mildly and interrupted her. But our relationship began from our marriage, and we are loyal to our marriage. As long as my man has not cheated, nor is he too close to any other woman, and only loves me, regardless of whether he had a childhood sweetheart past, or if he had an unforgettable past, that is all in the past. After all, he is my man now. We are not children. Who hasn't had a past? Don't you think so? Secretary An watched Ji-Nuan for a moment. After a moment, the corners of her lips twitched. After a long while, she forced out a smile. You think so? What else? Earlier on, Secretary An casually mentioned the word past. Could it be that you're not referring to what I'm thinking? Ji-Nuan's smile was light and carefree. My own husband. Exactly how good he is and exactly how many women adore him. I understand this very well, and have long been mentally prepared. But from the moment we got married, he is my, Ji-Nuan's, husband. Even if he had thousands of women by his side in the past, they were all complete failures. And Shu Yan was silent for a moment. She stared at Ji-Nuan's expression, as though trying to see if her heart was as indifferent as she said. Ji-Nuan's fingers gently tapped on the table. From start to finish, she did not take a sip of her coffee. Her tone was light and unhurried. An outstanding person will naturally have no lack of pursuers. Regardless of who it was in the past, or who it is in the future, they are all just lowly losers. Secretary An's gaze faltered. She did not speak. She raised the coffee cup to her lips and paused for a moment. However, she did not take another sip and place the cup down. She did not look at Ji-Nuan again. So, Secretary An, regardless of whether it is her family background or her intellect, they are all so high class. You most likely would not do such a lowly thing. Even if a very persuasive elder wants to support you, Secretary An, based on your own values and bottom line, you would not allow yourself to be branded with the title of a mistress. Am I right, Secretary An? After saying all this, Ji-Nuan took a sip of coffee. Her actions were calm. Even though her entire body was filled with aggression, her smile was languid, causing one to not feel the slightest bit of aggression. She was so elegant that it was as though she was watching from the sidelines, coldly watching a fish struggling in the mud. It's about time to go to the business hall. Let's drink coffee another day. Secretary and suddenly stood up and placed the 2 pink bills on the table. She picked up her bag and politely nodded at Jinwan before turning to leave. All right, let's meet another day. Jinwan raised her hand toward her. Like a lazy kitten waving its paw, she shook it at her. Before Secretary and could walk far, Jinwan coincidentally picked up Mo Jingshan's call. She sweetly said, "Hello, hubby? I just met Secretary and at the entrance of your company. She invited me to a coffee." Secretary Anne's footsteps gradually quickened until she was out of the coffee shop. Your tone is like a cat that has stolen a fish. What did you talk about? Mo Jingshan could easily hear Jinwan's emotions from her voice. From the corner of her eyes, Jinwan glanced at Secretary and outside the window. As expected, before Secretary Anne entered the car, she turned back to look. Seeing that Jinwan was still on the phone, she expressionlessly opened the car door and entered the car. Only after Secretary Anne's car had left did Jinwan lightly curve her lips. What else can women talk about? Especially a woman with a strong motive toward my hubby. So, earlier, I might have been a little too fierce and scared that outstanding Secretary Anne away. Jinwan held the phone as she spoke nonsensically. At the same time, she touched the already cold coffee cup by her hand. The man's low chuckle came from the other side of the phone. What? Your ability to bite people can be used on others? Chapter 93. Perfect. Mo Jingshan's voice was low and seductive. Who's more perfect than my Mrs. Mo? Don't try to coax me with such sweet words. Secretary Anne said today that the number of women you've had in the past could line up several times around the world. In the next moment, she could hear his low and husky laughter through the phone. Mrs. Mo's ability to rebuke people has improved by several times. Did you train your mouth overnight? Or have you been plotting against me for a long time? A wise man submits to circumstances. If I want to live a good life, I don't have to consider hugging someone else's thigh. After all, my husband is the thickest thigh in Haicheng. It would be a waste not to hug him. Furthermore, Jinwan supported her chin with one hand, speaking into the phone. You've already swept away all the unnecessary obstacles on your thigh, leaving all the empty space for me. How could I not hug it? So, Mrs. Mo's change is because you've finally learned to be tactful? The man's voice deepened, and Jinwan heard a pen lightly tapping on the table on his side. Inexplicably, he could feel a dangerous aura coming from the other side of the phone. Being tactful is secondary. What's important is that Boss Mo's wisdom, martial prowess, and handsomeness have deeply convinced me. Jinwan raised her brows. Why don't you say that I've subdued you through sleeping with me? The man's tone was mild. Jinwan was suddenly unable to refute. After all, she had indeed slept with him for one night. After waking up, she had completely changed. How else could she explain? She was completely speechless. Jinwan decided to change the topic. I was just talking about the women you've had in the past. Don't talk about sleeping with me when you're so serious. You're my only woman. The identity of Mo Jingshan's wife is also unique to you. What else do you want to say? His tone carried a hint of a smile. Jinwan was choked for a moment. This man's words always hit the nail on the head. There were no loopholes for her to retaliate. There were many things she wanted to say. She could not mention the things that had happened in her previous life and forced herself not to think about them. After all, she had not participated in those 10 years. Regardless of who Mo Jingshan was with, which woman he married, or whether he really kept Ji Mengran by his side, she had no right to ask about these things in her previous life. She wanted to ask why he chose her when he had so many choices before getting married. In his eyes, and Shu Yan was nothing special. He could ignore her, and reject her. But with Mo Jingshan's personality, although the Mo family was powerful, they had no way of controlling Mo Jingshan's life and decisions. Why did he not reject the Ji family's marriage? Why didn't he reject her? In the past, he had rejected in Shu Yen and many other socialites because of whom. Half a year ago, he had coincidentally accepted the Mo family's arrangement at that time. Jean Wan calmly suppressed the various thoughts in her heart, but her heart felt like it had been knocked over. He really wanted to ask, in fact, he wanted to ask too many questions. She had not participated in Mo Jingshan's past and future for the past 10 years. She only felt that it was strange and even unreachable. It's already afternoon. I'll go take a look at the studio first. Jean Wan stood up as she spoke, handing the bills on the table to the waiter in the coffee shop. She took her phone and walked out of the coffee shop. You don't have to take Secretary An's words seriously. The foundation of marriage is trust. This word suits you, and it suits me even more. Don't worry, don't think too much, Yen. Mo Jingshan heard her leaving the coffee shop and softly comforted her. Jean Wan softly made an sound and did not say anything more. Don't forget what I promised you. 1 week. Jean Wan's footsteps paused. 1 week? There were only 3 days left from the 1 week he promised to let Shu Yen leave the Mo Corporation. Was he really going to let Shu Yen leave just like that? Although Jean Wan felt that she might be making a mountain out of a molehill, when it came to matters of the heart, women really could not tolerate the slightest bit of sand. Bottom lines and principles, she still had to uphold them. All right, she responded. The company will be busy these 2 days. There are many things that I need to personally discuss. There will be an international collaboration dinner the night after tomorrow. It will also be very late. I'll have Auntie Chen accompany you. It's fine. I can do it myself. There's no need to call her over. The sky gradually darkened. Jean Wan returned to Aolan International. When she came out of the study with the notebook she used for work, she was about to return to the bedroom to continue reading. Her gaze swept past the door that had never been opened, and her footsteps paused. There was a sudden knock on the door. Jean Wan's gaze moved away from the tightly shut door. Auntie Chen? She opened the door and saw that Auntie Chen was standing outside with a fresh fish and vegetables. Madam, I didn't disturb you by coming at this time, did I? Auntie Chen asked. No, but why would you? Sir asked me to prepare dinner for you, lest you slack off at night and only eat takeout. Auntie Chen entered with a smile. After entering, she went into the kitchen to wash her hands. She was so busy that she did not even have time to exchange a few words with Jean Wan. When did Mo Jingshan understand her so well? Although she knew how to cook, there was really not much to prepare for dinner alone. Based on her personality, it was likely that she would really order takeout or just not eat at all. Madam, is there anything else you want to eat? Since it's not completely dark yet, I can go buy some other ingredients, Auntie Chen said in the kitchen as she busied herself. I'm fine with anything. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Although this is downtown, I'm still not used to the surrounding environment. Earlier, I finally found a nearby vegetable market, but I didn't buy anything else. The things in the big supermarkets are too expensive. I think Madam should go back to the U Garden to live occasionally. Living here every day, even eating is a problem, Auntie Chen nagged, full of concern. Jean Wan, however, smiled. She really did eat a lot. After all, Boss Missouri had personally fed her. She felt that her face had become rounder these days. Jean Wan wanted to go into the kitchen to help but was pushed out by Auntie Chen. She had no choice but to pour a glass of water for Auntie Chen and return to the study with the computer. At around 11 o'clock p.m., Mo Jingshan returned to Aolan International. Mr. Mo, it's so late. You didn't stay in the company to rest? Auntie Chen came out and asked respectfully. Mo Jingshan nodded to Auntie Chen and did not say much. Auntie Chen suddenly pointed to the study room that was still lit and said softly, Madam has been in the study since dinner. I didn't dare to disturb her. Mo Jingshan walked in and opened the door to find that Jean Wan had fallen asleep by the computer. Her arms were on the table, and her head was pillowed on them. Her beautiful brows were slightly furrowed, and it seemed that she was not sleeping well. Chapter 94. When Jean Wan woke up, it was already past 7 in the morning. Mo Jingshan's figure was no longer on the bed. She did not remember when she returned to the bedroom last night. Right now, her clothes had been changed into her usual nightgown. It couldn't be that Auntie Chen had the strength to carry her in and help her change her clothes, right? Auntie Chen. Jean Wan grabbed her slightly messy hair as she walked out. Jingshan came back last night? That's right, madam. Mr. Mo came back very late last night. Mo Jingshan had clearly told her that the company would be busy these few days and had specially asked Auntie Chen to accompany her. In the end, he was so busy that he returned to Ao Lan International. She did not know if the distance between Mo Jingshan's heart and hers was close or far. At this moment, Jean Wan felt that perhaps she really should not be affected by Secretary N's words. There was no need to think about such things. She was simply worrying over nothing. That's right, Mr. Mo also said that in the future, madam, you must return to the bedroom to sleep before 10. You're not allowed to work so late in the study or stay up late. He also said that I must watch over you. Auntie Chen smiled as she spoke. Her eyes were filled with gratification. She felt that although Sir and Madam did not return to the Yew Garden to stay, the relationship between husband and wife seemed to be improving. Jean Wan scratched her hair again and nodded. I understand. After speaking, she returned to the bathroom in the bedroom to wash up. Mo Corporation, CEO's office. In front of the clear floor-to-ceiling windows, Mo Jingshan had one hand in his pocket as he listened to Secretary N and Shen Mu talk about the project report from America's Shine. After the two finished speaking and left, the office returned to silence. Mo Jingshan remained standing in front of the window without moving. His phone rang. Mo Jingshan picked it up and heard Qin Siding speak with a hint of a smile. I heard that Mo Corporation has finally accepted Shine Group's invitation to collaborate with them. They want to develop a large multinational capital chain. It's a rather large project? Do you have any objections? Mo Jingshan's voice was low and indifferent. I'm not interested in your merciless business. Of course, I have no opinion. Qin Siding sneered coldly. But ever since you established the Mo Corporation, you never planned to take over the Shine Group in the US. Your father is middle-aged but still smart and strong, so he shouldn't be in a hurry to hand over the foundation of the Mo family to you. But this time, the Mo Corporation and the Shine Group have made such a big move. Let me guess, what's the reason that made you, the young master of the Mo family who originally planned to be free and unfettered outside, start to draw in the net step by step? This step was destined to happen sooner or later. Qin Siding. The next day, when Jean Wan woke up, she still did not see Mo Jingshan. Auntie Chen said that he still returned very late and left very early. She directly drove to Mo Wan's studio. In the past few days, she had already shaved away most of the people in the studio. Those who remained were all silent out of fear. However, not everyone was afraid of her. After all, there were still some people who were waiting for her studio to close down, waiting to see her make a fool of herself. There were even people who harbored evil intentions. After returning from the studio, she went to Xia Tian's place. Unsurprisingly, she bumped into Dr. Sheng. The new ward you've arranged for Xia Tian is not bad. The environment and security are many times better than the previous one. Jean Wan's words were considered a greeting, but her tone was very distant. Dr. Sheng coldly glanced at her. I really couldn't tell that you care more about your friend than your own little sister. My own little sister? Jean Wan smiled faintly. Perhaps you don't know, but to me, Xia Tian and my so-called little sister, the roles they play in my life are as different as heaven and earth. Dr. Sheng's cold brows did not move. He only stared at her for a moment, his voice low and cold. In your life, what role do I play? Jean Wan coldly looked at him and did not speak. Dr. Sheng had long guessed that she would refuse to answer. He removed his mask and placed it in the pocket of his white coat. His expression was stern. I've already fulfilled the request you made a few days ago. Tomorrow night, I'll be representing the Sheng family to attend a banquet. If you want to cut all ties with me, why don't you agree to a condition of mine? Jean Wan faintly furrowed her brows. What condition? Chapter 95. Why should I promise you? The one who feels guilty is you, not me. Jinwan stared at him coldly. The man in front of her smiled faintly, his lips curving into a strange curve. Do you really think that Mo Jingshan doesn't know about our relationship? Don't you want to get rid of everything related to me? I don't need to explain my conditions to you. Jinwan really wanted to smash the bag in her hand into his face. She suppressed her anger, coldly asking, "Since I'm representing the Sheng family to attend the banquet, why do you want me to go? It has to be you. Why me? You'll know once you go." His lips curved slightly, his smile cold. He did not explain further, nor did he wait for Jinwan's agreement or rejection. He put on the surgical mask again and entered the ward next door. Jinwan lowered her eyes to look at the floor covered in the smell of disinfectant and fell into deep thought. Jinwan could not sleep for the entire night just because of a banquet she did not even know the reason for. She thought that she would finally be able to see Mo Jingshan when he returned tonight. In the end, when she finally fell asleep at 2 a.m., she did not see him return. The next day, she slept until noon. Perhaps because she did not sleep well, her head hurt slightly. After showering, she changed her clothes and prepared to leave. However, the moment she reached the studio, she saw a silver-white car parked there. The car window rolled down, revealing the man's face. Although he was handsome, because he rarely walked outside, he lacked the moisture of sunlight and often wore a surgical mask. As a result, he appeared slightly paler than the average good-looking man. Jinwan furrowed her brows, her gaze unhappy. "How did you know I would come here?" The expression of the man in the car did not change. He remained indifferent and cold. He glanced at Jinwan's businesslike attire, and an incomprehensible coldness and melancholy appeared in his eyes. "Little girl, you've really grown up. Dr. Sheng." Jinwan coldly stood by the car door. "Don't tell me that you've always been clear about my whereabouts. If that's the case, I'm afraid I'll call the police." The man watched her. "Tonight, you're my female companion. Aren't the 3 words Dr. Sheng a little too unfamiliar?" Jinwan's smile was cold, and her words were full of sarcasm. Sheng Yihan. When Sheng Yihan heard this form of address that he hadn't heard for a long time, his pale lips curled up slightly, but it was only for a moment before it disappeared. "Yesterday, I didn't agree to attend that dinner with you. After a night of consideration, my answer is still that I won't go." Jinwan finished speaking and turned to leave without looking at him. However, just as he turned around, his vision suddenly darkened, and he almost stumbled forward. She hurriedly raised her hand to support herself against the street lamp beside her to barely stand. This morning he had a headache. Perhaps it was because of the bone-chilling autumn wind, the cold rain, and the cold air from the north. The autumn wind made people's headaches. The car door behind her opened, and her arm was immediately supported. She did not need to think to know who it was. A layer of goosebumps covered her body, and she flung the person behind her away as though she had been electrocuted. "Don't touch me." Sheng Yihan ignored her temper and reached out to hold her wrist. "What's going on? Are you not feeling well? Mind your own business." Jinwan could not even be bothered to look at him. Seeing her resistance, Sheng Yihan let go of her. Seeing Jinwan leaning against the street lamp, her expression did not look good. He said in an irresistible tone, "Go to the hospital." Jinwan was about to say no, take a deep breath, and try to stand firm when her wrist was suddenly tightened. The man beside her pulled her to the car, opened the door, and pressed her in. "What are you doing, You've had a cold body since you were a child. Don't you know it? Go to the hospital." Sheng Yihan directly locked the car door, not giving her a chance to get out. When he also sat in the car, Jinwan coldly snorted. "Why do I have a cold body? Don't you know better than me? It's all because of you." Sheng Yihan's hand that had just reached for the steering wheel instantly tightened. His expression did not look good. He coldly said nothing, started the engine and drove. She could not resist, and she did not have the strength to resist. Jinwan simply leaned against the back of the seat. At first, she was highly focused on guarding against him, but the temperature in the car was moderate, and her head was uncomfortable. Unconsciously, she gradually closed her eyes. She didn't know how long she slept. It was not until Jinwan felt her neck sore and painful that she slowly opened her eyes. The interior of the car was no longer as bright as it was during the day. She was still sleeping in the car, wearing a man's coat. The scent of medicine and disinfectant carried a faint smell. She froze, and very sensitively, she forcefully tore off the coat and threw it to the side. She sat up straight, looked up, and saw that the lights were already on outside the car window. She didn't know where the car was parked. There were many cars passing by, and it seemed that the car had been parked in this parking space for a long time. She turned to see Xing Yihan sitting in the driver's seat. Because she woke up, he directly turned his eyes to her, and she couldn't tell whether he was happy or angry. His cold eyes fell on her face. It was very dark in the car, but it was not difficult to see each other's expressions. Jinwan frowned. "Didn't you say you would send me to the hospital? Where is this?" "We've been to the hospital." "You slept too deeply," Xing Yihan said indifferently. "Your physique and resistance are not up to standard, and you're afraid of the cold. The colder the weather, the more you need to wear. Doesn't Mo Jingshan even care about these things?" How could he not care? Mo Jingshan could not wait for her to dress like a bear every day before going out. If she wore any less, his gaze would be able to freeze her. However, there was no need to explain this to him. Jinwan did not speak, only looking out the car window. She felt that this place seemed to be near a certain high-class hotel in High City. She looked up again. King's Court Hotel. Yesterday, Xing Yihan had asked her to accompany him to a hotel in High City to attend a dinner party. Was it here? I've said it before. I won't go to any dinner party that has nothing to do with me. Why did you bring me here? Jinwan said indifferently, reaching out to open the car door. Seeing that the car door could not be opened, she turned to look at him coldly. Xing Yihan, you're still as despicable as before. Open the door. Xing Yihan appeared as though he did not hear her words. He indifferently glanced at the passing cars, his tone calm. The dress I prepared for you is in the back. Go change. I'm not changing. Jinwan glared at him. Open the door. He appeared as though he did not hear her, ignoring her rejection. He opened the car door on his side and got out, indicating that he wanted her to change alone in the car. Chapter 96. Jinwan directly took out her phone to call the police. From the corner of her eyes, she suddenly saw a black limousine parked in front of the hotel. Two figures walked out, and her fingers on her phone paused. When she saw the two figures clearly, Jinwan's expression changed. It was Mo Jingshan and An Shuyan. A few days ago, Mo Jingshan had indeed told her over the phone that he would be attending a dinner tonight. Why would he appear here with An Shuyan? So, they were attending the same dinner? From afar, she saw the two of them alight at the same time. Today, An Shuyan was dressed beautifully. She wore a white strapless gown. When they entered the hotel, An Shuyan, who followed closely by Mo Jingshan's side, suddenly raised her hand and held onto his arm. Jinwan's mind instinctively reacted. That was, Mo Jingshan would definitely push her away. However, Mo Jingshan did not push her away. Jinwan's heart was instantly pounded harshly. Her hand paused on the car window and did not move for a long time. The other side of the car window was suddenly knocked twice. The door was opened. Xing Yihan looked at her, asking softly, "Are you sure you're not going in?" Jinwan turned her head. Some emotions flashed across her eyes, but they were well concealed. She wanted to ask him why he brought her here. However, when the words reached her lips, she felt that based on his personality, the answer he gave her might not be the truth. She might as well go see for herself. "Close the door. I'm changing," she angrily reprimanded. Xing Yihan's lips curled into an imperceptible cold smile. The car door was closed again. As if to reassure her, he left the electronic car key in the car, giving her a chance to open the door and come out by herself after changing the car. Was he certain that she would not run away again? Jinwan secretly gritted her teeth. She reached out and took the bag from the back seat. She opened it and saw that it was a high-end box containing the gown. She impatiently opened it. 10 minutes later, Ji Nuan alighted from the car. Do you think I'm still a teenage girl? It's actually a pink gown, and the hem is decorated with all kinds of feathers. I really wonder if you deliberately brought me to this kind of place to embarrass me. She complained with an unpleasant expression. Sheng Yihan took a look at her, and there was a flash of amazement in his cold eyes. Although Jinwan used to attend all kinds of banquets with her father, he had to admit that Jinwan's beauty was very low-key and gentle. It was not aggressive or lethal, but as long as she dressed up a little, her natural beauty was more attractive to men than her lethal beauty. You're only 20, why can't you wear pink? Sheng Yihan walked away from the car, his tone still cold, but when Jinwan glanced at the hotel with a dark expression, he casually said to her, "Very beautiful. Who would make a fool of themselves in such a place?" You won't make a fool of yourself. After all, you win in appearance. This man, Sheng Yihan, was so annoying even when he was saying nice things. Jinwan didn't look at him. Fortunately, the length of the dress was just below her feet and could cover her flat shoes. There was a new pair of high heels in a bag under the back seat, but she didn't wear them. She was really not in the mood to wear them. You didn't change your shoes? He noticed that her height didn't change and asked, "Didn't you say I win in appearance?" Jinwan retorted coldly. Sheng Yihan didn't speak anymore but glanced at her dress again. She was more than 1.6 meters tall and had a slender figure. Her tight fit was perfect. Wearing such a dress, the length was just right. She really didn't need to wear a pair of heels that were more than 10 centimeters tall to look tall and slender like other women. He turned to the hotel, and Jinwan followed. As she walked, she simply used a rubber band to tie up her long hair, which was scattered on her shoulders and back, into a slightly fluffy bun on the top of her head. Then she walked in with a plain face. Before entering the main entrance of the hotel, Sheng Yihan noticed that she was dressed simply for this kind of dinner party and said meaningfully, "I really didn't expect that the Ji family's eldest miss would one day be so crude." Jinwan held back a smile as she looked at the well-dressed people inside. Anyone who had gone through 10 years of hardship would not be able to be refined. Could it be that she would have to call a stylist to come over and style her before going in? If it was the Jinwan of the past, perhaps she would have done so. She didn't explain, and after entering, she didn't plan to get too close to Sheng Yihan. King's Court Hotel was the largest 7-star hotel in Haicheng. There were already many people in the luxurious banquet hall, and there were many people dressed in fragrant clothes. Famous politicians and businessmen stood in groups of 3 to 5, raising wine glasses and toasting. It was so lively that Jinwan was deeply suspicious. With such a grand scene, just what kind of dinner party was this? Jinwan noticed that there were many guests speaking with American English accents in the banquet hall. From their English conversation, she could vaguely tell that they were the senior executives and important members of the Shine Group. And tonight, Shine Group officially signed a contract with the MO Corporation for an international cooperation project. Recently, MO Jingshan had indeed been busy with this matter. After listening for a while, Jinwan noticed Sheng Yihan's gaze on her and had no choice but to follow him inside. Several people were conversing, and their voices landed in her ears. Shine Group was founded in Haicheng. After moving its headquarters to America more than 10 years ago, I didn't expect that the first international cooperation with a domestic company would actually be with the MO Corporation. No matter how you look at it, it's still our home. As expected, we should keep the goodies within our own fields. I heard that Director MO will also be here tonight? It's been many years since Director MO returned to Haicheng, right? The company headquarters in America needs him to oversee it. It's really been hard on him these past few years. Isn't that so? I heard that when CEO MO got married half a year ago, Director MO couldn't even find time to return to attend the wedding. He didn't even get to see his daughter-in-law. His sudden return this time is really sudden. Jinwan's heart was filled with an indescribable sense of unease. Director MO? MO Jingshan's father, MO Shaoza? She continued walking in. All of a sudden, from the corner of her eyes, she saw a tall and familiar figure. Jinwan turned to look in that direction. That person, that face. It was MO Jingshan, that handsome face that caused one's hair to stand on end. He walked to the center of the banquet hall from the other side. The light and shadows disappeared, and his figure and appearance became clear inch by inch. He had cool and handsome brows, a high nose bridge, and light lips. His facial features were like the work of God, perfect and impeccable. His cold lips were curved in an extremely bland and emotionless curve. Black trousers wrapped around his long and straight legs, without a trace of unkempt. Similarly, he wore a black, handmade shirt that was expensive. The moment he appeared, he did not need to speak to immediately attract everyone's attention. Handsome and cold, bland and calm, as well as an unparalleled aloofness. Chapter 97. Mo Jingshan's expression was indifferent. It was impossible to discern his emotions, and he did not respond. However, Shuyan still stood very close to him, tightly pressed against him. She was originally wearing a low-cut gown, elegant and sexy. She pressed against his arm as they walked into the crowd. And Shuyan was clearly familiar with many of the people present. She greeted them with a smile and occasionally glanced gently at Mo Jingshan, causing everyone who saw this scene to unavoidably overthink things. Mo Jingshan's eyes were wide open. Jin Wan stared in that direction. All of a sudden, Sheng Yihan stood by her side and handed her a glass of champagne. At the same time, he said in a voice only she could hear, "Tonight's theme has nothing to do with the Sheng family. However, my father has always been very interested in America's Shine Group's recent projects and asked me to investigate." Sheng Yihan's voice was indifferent, making it difficult to detect his emotions. Shine's foundation is in the Mo family, and it has been developing in America for many years. Its power and wealth cannot be underestimated, especially Shine's current chairman, Mo Xiaozi. It is said that he is an extremely stubborn person. The daughter-in-law he has taken a liking to is clearly the one by Mo Jingshan's side. Jin Wan forced herself to retract her gaze. She said unconcernedly, "This is a gathering place for the upper class, and it's a dinner with Shine as its theme. There's nothing wrong with him bringing Secretary N along. After all, this Secretary N came from Shine." "Is that so?" Sheng Yihan took a sip of champagne, chuckling meaningfully by her ear. Mo Xiaozi hasn't returned to the country for many years. It's rare for him to come back. Tonight, many of the Mo family's people will be gathered here. As the rightful granddaughter-in-law of the Mo family, you were not invited. Even Mo Jingshan himself did not plan on bringing you along. Regardless of whether it's because of Shine's cooperation project or some other reason, in an occasion like tonight, his choice is definitely not you. Jin Wan's grip on the glass tightened. She then coldly glanced at Sheng Yihan. Jin Wan turned back and looked in that direction. However, she did not make a sound. Even as the crowd walked over, she remained where she was and did not approach. "You're not going?" Sheng Yihan coldly reminded. Jin Wan's expression was not very good. Hearing the voice by her side, she smiled indifferently and pretended to be relaxed. "There are too many people and I can't breathe. This place is pretty good." As she spoke, she finished the wine in the glass in one gulp and threw the glass into Sheng Yihan's arms. Without even looking at his expression, she casually picked up another glass of wine from the long table in the corner. She could feel that although Sheng Yihan's tone was mocking her, as if the more unhappy she was in this marriage, the happier he would be. But in fact, most of his attention was on everyone present. She knew very well how good Sheng Yihan was at hiding and how meticulous his thoughts were. Many years ago, it was clear what kind of dangerous person he was. He was deeply hidden, had astonishing patience, and was also a strategist. But right now, she was really not in the mood to care about him. She had not planned to attend this banquet. If she had not seen Mo Jingshan, she would never have come in. But now, she suspected that she was wrong to come here. She really shouldn't have come. The cocktail in her mouth was a little sweet, but the alcohol content was obviously a little higher than the glass of champagne just now. She only took a sip and frowned. She looked down at the colorful liquid in the cup. There were some ice cubes that had not melted yet in the cup, so it was very cold. It was good for calming her burning heart. After drinking 3 or 4 glasses in a row, She saw many people of the Mo family were also present. She was not familiar with the people of Shine Group, but the Mo family was very familiar with her. Jin-won tried to keep herself in the dark in the corner so as not to be discovered. And from this distance, because the crowd was in front of her, she could no longer see what was going on with Mo Jingshin. She looked back at the front door of the hotel, where several relatives and friends of the Mo family were talking and there were security guards at the door. If she left now, she would only attract attention. Sheng Yihan. Because Jin-won had drunk some wine and was not good at drinking, her eyes were a little red. Although it was not obvious, the people around her could still see it. Sheng Yihan lowered his eyes to look at her, staring into her eyes. Jin-won looked at him and said with a cold and mocking smile, "Although you haven't been in the Sheng family for so many years, you have long been preparing to return, haven't you? Enduring humiliation to bear the burden, enduring hardships to gain courage. You're really something." The man did not speak, but his lips curved imperceptibly and coldly, looking into her slightly red eyes. "Your appetite is not small. You even have ideas about Shine and the Mo Corporation. Aren't you afraid of eating too much and being swallowed back?" Jin-won coldly glanced at him, the mockery in her eyes deepening. Sheng Yihan's eyes gradually revealed an obvious sneer. "What can be more terrible than being swallowed back by love? I can even endure this kind of pain. What is there to be afraid of?" Jin-won's expression did not change, but the coldness in her eyes deepened. It was as if she could see the scene of that young man being rejected by the Sheng family many years ago. After his mother married into the Ji family, he was expelled from the Ji family because of her, the eldest daughter of the Ji family. That young man's eyes were deep and profound when he finally looked at her. She coldly curved her lips and picked up another glass of wine, casually leaning against the table behind her, saying coldly, "That's your self-righteous love. It has nothing to do with me." Sheng Yihan only mildly curved his lips. Looking at her, he reached out and gently brushed past her cheeks that were slightly warm from the alcohol. Jin-won instantly turned her face away in disgust and then coldly looked at him. "What are you doing? The first time I saw you, you were still the high and mighty young lady of the Ji family. Like a princess who despised everyone, you walked through the dazzling banquet hall. Then, behind your father's back, you hid in a corner and secretly tasted the wine. In the end, you got drunk and slept in a corner, your face as red as an apple. I went to carry you out, but you bit me." Jin-won unconcernedly moved the glass away from her lips, coldly saying, "If it were now, I definitely wouldn't have bitten you. After all, you're too dirty." Her gaze was cold and sharp, and her words did not leave him any face. Jin-won did not wish to continue this topic. Although the alcohol content of the wine at the banquet was not particularly high, she really could not hold her liquor. Furthermore, her mood was slightly affected, and she drank several types of wine mixed together. The headache she had during the day came again. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.